Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So it's 9:32 a.m. We'll call the meeting to order, and we will begin with adoption of the agenda. Anything to add from council? Don't see anything. Anything from the min?
No.
Okay. Councillor Kush.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Kush. Motion on the floor from Councillor Kush. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. We go to item 3, so that's council minutes for 13th April 2022. Any errors or omissions there?
Move as presented.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dean. Motion to move as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 27 April 2022, regular council, that's regular council meeting minutes. Councillor Wilhelm.
Motion to move April 27, 2022 minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilhelm. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Special council meeting of 2nd of May 2022. Any errors or omissions observed there? Councillor Williams.
I'll move that council accepts the meeting minutes from May 2nd, 22 as presented.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, that brings us to a public hearing that we're a little bit early for. Are you ready to proceed with the public hearing, or should we go to are you ready to proceed with it?
Were you expecting any guests or delegations?
Nate Wilson, Joan thought Nate Wilson might be here.
So maybe
Okay,
we should
we've
move
got to
the
wait
front
until
one.
the appointed time for this then. I'm just checking to see if that other bylaw is tied to, is 5.1 tied to the public hearing at all?
5.1 is, it would probably in best interest to move to
5.2.
5.2.
Okay, let's go to 5.2. 2022 tax incentive bylaw, 587.22. So, Alicia.
Your worship, members of council, this item is before you this morning in the anticipation of finding council's direction for the 2022 tax year. My apologies, I'm just flipping around for it. This was an initiative that came into play in 2020, and it was in response to a COVID initiative to assist ratepayers with some of the uncertainties that the whole world was facing. It's also served our purpose in the fact that it increased our cash flows and it made operations a little bit more viable at that period in time. We ran with it again in 2021 because the feedback from the community and the ratepayers was quite favorable to have a tax incentive bylaw. Essentially, it was 3% on residential and farmland municipal portion of their tax rate and 1% on non-residential, the portion of their municipal tax rate. So it's before you today in anticipation of the rest of the taxation rates coming to council for next meeting and looking for council's direction on this matter if we're to proceed with the incentive.
Okay, any questions to Councilor Williams?
It's obvious that we've got quite a high rate of payment before the deadline. Was it lower before this tax incentive? Or like, has that gone up or is it kind of always consistent?
Through the chair to Councillor Williams, the answer to that question is a little bit mixed up because the due date for taxes in Woodlands County has always been June 30th, and that's been a hard, fast deadline. Penalties are levied on all of the unpaid accounts after that date. We had some direction from council in 2020 to defer the first penalty and to extend the due date on taxes. So the initiative or the incentive was put in to meet both goals, is to allow the deferral of the due date on taxes, but also to positively affect our cash flow by saying, you know what, if you pay by June 30th, even though you don't have to,
Oh,
there's this incentive for you.
The reality was at the time that we would probably end up being in a line of credit. So any, if we offered the incentive, it would stay in the pockets of Woodlands County residents rather than going to a financial institution in the form of payments. And it was well received. I think the survey that we put out on it was 97% positive. And again, it's one of these things that I think is, let's face it, we only have, there's the carrot and the stick in this, in policy and legislation, and I much prefer the carrot.
Yeah.
So,
And this makes total sense to me. Like I disagree with you.
okay, I'm gonna go with Counselor Wilhelm and then Counselor Tush.
Through the chair to Alicia. Just, I guess my question is, we see this is essentially costing us between 140 and 170 per year if we continue to do this, or somewhere around there. That's, if I look at it in a mindset of it being an investment, does the a return on investment, essentially that $170,000, are we saving a comparable amount or more on if we were to dip into our line of credit, like the interest that would cost on that line of credit? Do we see this, or does administration see this as that $150,000 investment on average as savings in the long run by not having to dip moving forward? Like, we do know that essentially COVID's over and our economy has turned around and is on the rise. So we have to look at it as, do we need to continue to spend $150 to try to make sure that they pay beforehand? Like, from your end, do you believe that that $150 is a meaningful investment and saves us money down the road?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm, in 2020 when this was implemented, it absolutely did. Of course, our interest on our line of credit is I believe a quarter over prime. So, and it all depends on the largeness of how much we're into that line of credit. So if we are running at the $5-6 million into our line of credit to operate, then absolutely the investment to the tax incentive is a little bit of advantageous, or at least a wash on that. In 2021, it was not as critical because we had managed to recoup and regain a significant amount of our cash flow, and we had that money, and we're also generating interest on the money that we have in our account rather than, which is offsetting this cost rather than having the line of credit being what we're utilizing to run. This year, I anticipate that it's going to be a little bit of a cost to the county because we have managed to retain some of our cash balances from the 2021 year. But that could change depending on other uncertainties that the county is facing right now. So from a purely financial, operational comfort experience, to have as much of our taxes paid by June 30th, and with the other items coming through, that is still the due date for the taxes, will be a good thing for the county. Being the first year that we're not extending the due date, I really don't have that figure as to whether or not. But the more money we have in, the more money we can invest for interest purposes.
Okay, Councillor Kush.
I was kind of, I guess, going off what Councillor Wilhelm said, because that was my question too. But if administration feels that this is a good way to go, at least one more year, give this a try and see how it looks at the end of this. I mean, if it turns out to be a really large cost to the county, out of COVID and whatnot doing this, we can obviously next year opt to stay away from this. But I would like to make a motion the council gives first reading to the 2022 tax incentive bylaw 587/22.
Okay, motion on the floor from Councillor Kush. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councillor Dean?
Yeah, through the chair to Alicia, and I guess to council. So clarification, the deferral program is no longer in effect?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, correct.
Okay, so would I be correct in assuming that when the incentive program was brought in, it was at the same time as the deferral? And it was to provide a financial break or some leniency to taxpayers, to ratepayers, but those that could pay at the due date of June 30th were offered an incentive. So it was kind of on either side.
Correct.
So now we're in a situation where there's no deferral. The tax is due on that date anyway, but we're offering a incentive to pay on the day they're supposed to pay. That, for me, that doesn't, I understand the principle of this situation from 2 years ago, but I think if we don't have a deferral, why would we offer an incentive?
Okay. Well, again, does admin have anything to say here?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, you are 100% correct. We're not offering any deferrals this year. We are anticipating that all taxes to be paid in June 30th. Until the June 30th date comes and goes, we have no ability to really determine who is going to pay and the largeness of what will be outstanding and potentially having to be worked on for collection before the end of the year.
Yeah. Just to, sorry, go ahead. Okay, just to clarify my position, I'm not in favor of this because I think it was a program that was put into place when the economic conditions were considerably different than they are now. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I'll speak to the motion. I would actually still be in favor of this. I think we're still a long way from getting out of COVID. The COVID part we're most likely out of, but I think we're gonna see some supply chain issues. There's gonna be pressures on people around inflation. There's gonna continue to be a lot of pressure on people. If there's a way that we can give them a method of a little bit of relief here, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do it. And again, with the situation that the county's in right now through arbitration, we could be heavy into the line of credit at some point as well. So we'd be best to incentivize cash flow as much as we can by June 30th. That would be my Councillor Wilhelm.
Just so I understand a procedural portion of this, in 2020 and 2021, the program was in place, but it wasn't a bylaw, correct? It was just a program that the county had put into place, and now we're trying to take a program and create a bylaw out of it. Is that how I understand it?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm, it was a bylaw in both 2020 and 2021, but we wrote the bylaw for only that particular year.
Would we consider then extending the bylaw a year and getting another year of data out of it as opposed to creating an all-encompassing, like, moving forward? Because we don't know, we're assuming $150,000 is gonna be our cost this year for this new bylaw. But we need more information as the economy rebounds, but again, we don't know. We could be dipping into our line of credit. I'm just wondering procedurally, do we need to create a bylaw that just moves forward, or can we take the previous bylaw and extend it another year?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm, the bylaw 587/22 before you is 1 year.
Oh, it is just 1 year.
It will be
I
done,
apologize.
no worries, it will be done at the end of the 2022 tax year.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, we still have a motion on the floor to pass first reading of the tax incentive bylaw, so if there's no other, no other comments to the motion, I'll call the question. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, first reading is carried. Do we want to move to Councillor
I'll make a
Prestige?
motion that council gives second reading to the 2022 tax incentive bylaw 587/22.
Thank you, Councillor Prestige. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Councillor Hogan? Okay, any opposed? Okay, it's carried. And we wish to proceed to third reading. Councillor Kush.
I'll give the third reading, or motion the council give third reading to the 2022 tax incentive bylaw 587.2.
Okay, motion to proceed to third reading. If we don't get unanimous on this one, then we can't proceed with third reading. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Sorry, I was just gonna discuss.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Counselor.
I was gonna say, I do think we should, like, I think that Councillor Dean's gonna probably not vote to go to the third reading, and I think that's okay. I think we should potentially have some more discussion about it too, if there is concern about it, and maybe get a bit more information. So just wanted to discuss it. I don't think we're gonna go to third reading anyways, but yeah, I understand your concerns, and maybe we should.
Okay, no, and again, this is how it all works, so. Okay, any other, Counselor Prestige?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean. This motion was to give the county funding before we went into our line of credit. It wasn't to help the residents, give them a break. But the only way we could get the money in on time was to give them a break. So that's the incentive to pay on time.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, it's not fair for the ones that can't pay. It wasn't intended for that. This was intended strictly for getting cash flow into the county, so we didn't have to go into our line of credit.
I understand.
Okay, Counselor Coolman.
Yeah, through the chair to council in general, you know, the way I see this is in two places. One is I agree with Reeve Burrows on the fact that we still have a lot of issues that we need to that are going to maybe be a problem for us in the future. And I think that, you know, I trust administration when they say, you know, this is something that, you know, potentially gives us a little bit more security in the management side. So for me, those two items make me think that it's probably a good idea to extend it for another year, because that was money that we didn't have in the budget anyway last year. So just because it's an incentive and we look at it as a loss doesn't really mean that we're losing the money. That's what I think.
Counselor Dean?
Through the chair to council, and just from a procedural point of view, I understand the will of council. I just have my own opinion. I'm likely to vote to go to third reading, and because I don't believe that one person should be a showstopper. It's just, you know, I'm just expressing my opinion.
Okay. And again, good conversation on the topic. Okay, I think we've got everybody, so.
Can I say one thing real quick? Yeah.
Counselor Wilhelm, one more time.
And the only, I know you guys talk too much, but I'm in support of doing this for one more year, but only in the fact that there is that uncertainty. I do think that this probably isn't something we should do long term, but yeah, I think one more year just to ride it out, just for the uncertainties, makes sense. So, sorry, I just had to say that.
It's okay. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? All right, with that, I'll call the question. And this is a motion to proceed to third reading, not to pass third reading. All in favor? Okay, I see unanimous consent to proceed to third reading. Does anyone want to move third reading, or Councillor Culkin?
I'll move that council give third reading to the 2022 tax incentive bylaw 587-22.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. And now we will move into the public hearing. As soon as I got one off my agenda. All right, so everybody's here that needs to be here?
From what I know, yes.
Okay, looks good. So at this point, this is item 4.1, the public hearing on bylaw 584-22, land use amendment 2022 LUA 02 Point Northeast 235910 west of the Fifth Meridian, 132.10 plus or minus acres, reserve district to county residential. I had to take a breath in the middle of that. So at this point, I'll declare the public hearing open, and I'll turn it over to Peter.
Good morning. Council gave first reading to bylaw 584/22, amending part northeast 235910 west of the Fifth Meridian from Reserve District to CR Country Residential District. The public hearing was advertised for 2 consecutive weeks in the local paper. Letters were sent to residents in the hamlet of Blue Ridge. No inquiries were received or written correspondence were received from residents. Attached under Appendix A are comments from the Woodlands County Infrastructure Department, Alberta Transportation, and Alberta Environment and Parks. Council at their March 17th, 2022 meeting approved an outline plan, Blue Ridge Community Estates, for future development plans for part northeast 235910 west of the Fifth Meridian. The application follows the staging sequence for phase 1 of the approved outline plan that will allow for the subdivision of residential lots 4.94 to 9.88 acres in size. Under Schedule A in Section 102 CR, Country Residential District, the districting the developer wishes to change, and Section 120 Reserve District, which the current districting of the parcel. The phased approach outlined in the plan, starting with larger country residential parcels, 4.94 to 9.88 acres in size, to the ultimate final goal of hamlet residential development would be urban in nature and developed to urban standards, meets the intent of the municipal development plan. Therefore, no amendment to the MDP is required. Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. And I forgot to preface at the beginning of the public hearing that this is an information session only. There's no decisions being made today by council, just so that people watching are aware. This is so that council can gather information and that the public can also gather information. So we welcome questions about the specifics of the related to the hearing and the development, or to the land use bylaw change. So with that, I'm going to open it up to council to ask any questions of admin.
Joan is also here if there's.
Go ahead, Councilor Dean.
Okay, and Joan is here, or she's,
She's just via.
okay.
Okay.
So a couple things. The first thing is I just want to reiterate, it's not a concern. I just honestly believe that the water and sewage plans are going to be cumbersome for lot owners. I think it's going to be expensive, and that's up to the developer and prospective buyers to work that out. The question I had though is, in the event the population increases and we want to move from the large lots to rezone those large lots into hamlet, would it be safe to assume that the lots closest to the hamlet boundary would be the ones that would be further subdivided into hamlet lot size first? Or would it be just indiscriminate and the person furthest away could say, hey, I want to subdivide now, and in between that and the rest of the hamlet, you'd have large lots?
Maybe Joan can speak to this.
Joan, did you hear the question?
Yes, good morning, Council. Through the reef to Councillor Dean, the intent would be hopefully that the closer parcels, so that they could attach to the municipal services, would be the first ones that would be rezoned to the smaller hamlet residential districts. However, if someone did choose that was further away, just a matter of a main line would have to be installed. A little bit of leapfrogging, however, I think it's a small enough area that it could definitely be accomplished, that if someone further, one of the larger lots further out wanted to go that route of establishing those smaller lots. Just like I say, again, a matter of installing the water and sewer lines in the road right away, more than likely, as well as they would also have to do some engineering to determine as to whether our Blue Ridge treatment plant could sustain that number of lots, which may also include upgrade to the water treatment plant and possibly the Blue Ridge lagoons.
Councillor Kush, I'm gonna go with, then I'll get back to you, Councillor Dean.
Just through the chair, Joan, in kind of a follow-up your comment there, has there been any look at our treatment facility or water facility in Blue Ridge to see, if, not this development, but if, this goes forward or further expanding the hamlet, if our facility can actually handle that, or is it gonna be something where we're gonna end up doing upgrades, regardless of this or something else?
I don't believe that our infrastructure department has completed a study with respect to how much more developability is there to be connected to our treatment plants. I know it had been discussed a few years ago. Generally, what occurs is if someone, like in this instance, wants to pursue it further, they would do the engineering with respect to as to whether our plants could sustain that. However, the municipality could, to be proactive, do those studies as well.
Okay, I'm just gonna get a clarification from infrastructure. Andre's got his hand up, so go ahead, Andre.
Through the reef to council. In the southeast corner of Blue Ridge, there's a development there that is not filled in yet. So the plant most likely can carry that development once it is completed. But if both developments go ahead, then it probably not likely that the plant in its current condition could supply water for both developments. So it would need upgrades. Typically when upgrades are done like that, as Joan said, the developer undertakes the engineering study, and if upgrades are required, then the developer typically pays for those upgrades.
Okay. Councillor Dean.
Yeah, and again, just looking into the future, will lot owners have any opportunity to provide direction in further subdivision? And where I'm going with this is, if these lots are all sold and say their houses are built in 15, 20 years down the road, there's an opportunity to change that density on one of the parcels. I'm thinking the rest of the lot owners are gonna go, I was hoping that didn't happen. So is there a plan, is there a caveat on title that this is this type of development, they have to expect that it could occur? How do we handle that?
That's a good question. I'm gonna go to Joan for that one.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Dean, at time of subdivision, we can certainly put as a condition that the outline plan be registered on all the new titles so that they are aware that that future development has potential to occur.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joan. I'm gonna ask one further question myself of infrastructure. So in our asset management plan that we have coming forward, where are we on water and sewer? And that Blue Ridge plant should be in the asset management within the asset management program. And is it capacity of the current plant not part of the asset management? So just an update on that.
Your worship, the water and sewer components of both Blue Ridge and Fort Assiniboine probably 80% complete. The plant, we are working on breaking down the components of the plant to assign assets to all the different components. The capacity of the plant itself that is taken into consideration in the asset management plan, and we do know what the capacity of it is.
Okay. Any further questions from council? All right. At this time, I'll invite the applicants or the representative of the applicants to provide comments or any new information.
I'm not sure if they're here.
They're not here at all? Okay. I have to flip the page and my fingers aren't working. Okay, were there any written or verbal submissions on, written submissions on the proposed bylaw?
Through, Your Worship, there was none. No.
None? Okay, are there any verbal? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak? I don't see anyone. Okay, I'll give the council one last opportunity to get any questions answered or ask any questions. Councilor Dean?
Just through the chair, back to Joan, I guess, just for clarity to that condition, so that I was referencing, where if all the lots were sold and then one lot owner decided they had an opportunity to change the density, those conditions are gonna be written into the lot sale so that each lot owner will be aware of that condition as a potential?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, it would actually be, we could actually register it on title, so on each title.
Okay.
So at time of subdivision, it would be just a caveat, kind of like a restrictive covenant, and we would have the final phase attached to it, showing the potential of however many lots that each of those parcels could potentially be split into.
And
So it would
when-
be actually physically on the title when
On
the,
the title,
once
okay.
the subdivision is registered, that caveat is registered on each title. So then when a purchaser comes forward and their solicitor pulls the land title, that caveat will be there and visible.
Do you need a motion to give you that direction?
Sorry, no, it's something that we would generally do. We've got another subdivision very similar down in Flats Road, in which we've got a concept plan for future town development on the particular subdivision.
Okay,
And procedurally as well, Joan, those caveats would be under the MPC portion when we're registering the subdivision, not under the zoning change, which we're considering here, correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that'll be the next
So
step,
it's just
yeah,
another
during the
step away,
subdivision
yeah.
process. That's correct.
Right. Okay. Anything further? Okay. And you said the applicants are not here, correct?
They're not.
Okay. And one last time, is there anyone who wishes to speak or didn't get a chance to speak? With that, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed, and we'll move on. We'll go to item 5.1, bylaw for land use amendment. Go ahead,
We
Councilor
have a
Bush.
delegation at 10 o'clock.
Oh, yes, we do, don't we? Thank you for keeping me on time here. 10 o'clock. This is the curling club funding request, correct? Thank you, Mr. McKay. It's handy you have that name so that I can remember it. All right.
Right. Morning, Reeve and Council. We have two people presenting to you a funding request from the White Court Curling Club. They're going to go over their PowerPoint presentation. Nikita has a copy of that. It was also in your package. I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mr. Reeves and councilors.
If you'd like, we can just do a quick introduction as we go around. We'll start with Alicia.
Alicia Barbeau, I'm chairing the meeting because Mr. Frank is away today.
Corinne Scott, Interim Executive Assistant.
Deb Williams, Councilor Division 7, Fort Assiniboine.
Bruce Prestidge, Counselor for Blue Ridge Division 5.
Dave Cush and Selmo, Counselor 1.
John Burrows, White Court West Counselor, and Reeve.
Peter Kilkin, Counselor for Division 6, Goose Lake, Freeman River.
Jeremy Wall, White Court East.
And White Court Central.
And Andre Bouchan, Director of Infrastructure.
Introduce yourself.
Yep. My name's Gordon Enza we're representing the White Court Current Club.
And I'm Ken Astle, representative of the White Court Current Club.
Welcome this morning. Okay, I won't get in your way, go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, so you guys got this PowerPoint. So we're basically coming here because of a joint liaison committee request. So this presentation has been given to the town of White Court already. So now we're just doing the second part, which is through the Woodlands County people. So basically the club at this point is in financial trouble. So our request is for funding to carry us through for the next season and over the summer months. At this point right now, we basically don't have enough funding to cover even our utilities at this point. So I'll go through the slide. So basically, we're requiring assistance. Over the past 6 years, we've invested all of our cash reserves to cover any additional repairs to the facility. Our plan to replenish our capital fund was squashed by COVID, so we have 2 seasons that have been canceled. We had no revenue coming in. So at this point now, we can't even basically cover our utilities. So we're trying to, we were trying to raise funds through a casino, which we brought in 21,000. Without bar revenue and membership revenue, we really fell flat. So at this point, we've done everything we could to come up with the funding to cover us for the season, to pay our utilities, and we're at that point now where we require assistance. So at this point, just as of June 1st to September, we require $15,800 to cover our utilities. And then from basically October on to next year, we require another $25,760. Now those are estimated costs based on the budget. We do have county residents obviously using the facility when there is a league, and that split is about 30% based on town and county residents. So 30% of the members are from the town or from the county, and 70 from town, White Court. We do have right now an agreement with the town of White Court to look after the building envelope. So any maintenance on the roof or walls, whatever is looked after, but the rest of it is completely up to the club to cover. So without, like I say, any curling season, we really are struggling. So our ask right now for Woodlands County is to provide, we're asking 50% of the deficit, which is $41,560, and that's basically equates to about $20,780 for the county to cover, and then the remainder is of course from the White Court. Right now, we require as of June 1st, we're hoping to get basically your share to help along with the town of White Court to cover the utilities, take us right through to September, when we anticipate another curling season to start up, and hopefully we can get curling going again. So without that funding, we're pretty well gonna have to fold the club. So that's pretty well it in a nutshell. I mean, we've given the budgets of what we presently have and what we anticipate coming down for the fall.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up for questions of council here. Councilor Cook.
I have one question here to administration. I'm not sure maybe if Heather or Alicia can answer this. We do have a policy which we fund our other community, ice rinks and plants and stuff on based off of percentage of utilities and whatnot. Have we taken a look at the numbers that they have and rolled it in through our policy and see what those numbers would look like versus what we pay for, like, say, our ice rink in Fort Assiniboine and stuff based off their ask? I know we did reduce a lot of what we're paying to other ice rinks and stuff that we have, and I don't wanna, no offense to the club, I know they do offer a lot, but we have other ones that we do take care of, and if we're paying, say, like, I don't know what the numbers are, but say $10,000 to $15,000 there, and you're asking 40, it's kind of a hard ask when we have another rink that's, not getting it type. I'm just curious what their numbers might look like based off of our policy.
Through the chair to Councillor Kush, if you allow Heather Anderson from Community Services to answer that.
That'd be great.
Through the chair to Councillor Kush, we have not actually compared them. This is the first time we've ever had a request of this nature. We do fund our curling rink in Fort Assiniboine, 75% of their operating of the utilities, and then we actually help them with their ice making, but we haven't actually compared to this. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's, like I said, about 75% of the utilities is the major cost.
Go ahead, Ken.
To the chair and general council, I just thought I'd maybe back us up a little bit and just give us a little bit of history on why the curling club, other than the COVID, has fallen into this state. For many, many, many years, and probably some of you folks have curled in Whitecourt and understand this, the club has supported itself basically through. It's not a money generator by any stretch of the imagination, but it does support itself. What happened is in 2019 and 2020, both years consecutively, we had major problems with the ice plant, to the tune of nearly $50,000 total. And we had a reserve fund, capital fund, in the club for emergencies. And consequently, paying those bills, the next year, we had we had 4 games, and then they canceled the season. And then from that point on, it's just snowballed. And we did have one casino here earlier this year. I'm sorry, late last year. But we have missed one, deferred, missed, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure we're not getting it back. In between that time too, which is a very good fundraiser for us to put to our capital accounts so that we have some cushion. So the real long and short of it is that, yeah, the club is kind of walks that edge, but generally speaking, the club is self-sufficient. And I believe that if the counties and the town, will help us out, we can get back to that state. But to get there now, I don't think it's likely.
So just to clarify, this is basically a one-time ask. It's not designed to be a recurring funding request year after year.
At this point, we're getting a one-time help out from the council, or from the joint liaison committee. They're actually the ones asking us to be here.
Okay, I sit on the joint liaison committee and we haven't discussed this.
Well, that's what we're told.
That's what we were told.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Your Worship and Council, for the presenters, if we could just ask them to finalize the presentation at this point. Council will only be accepting, or it's recommended the council only accepts the item for information. Any further discussion and semantics of should be done at a later time.
Yep. Okay, it's, yeah, thank you very much, and I know it's hard. Councillor Wilhelm, go ahead.
Before we wrap up real quick here, just a question. I'm assuming well, I guess I have 2 questions. One's through the chair to Heather. Wouldn't a request like this typically come through the community services for grant funding of this type?
Through the chair to Councillor Willem, it's typically, it depends on what it is. Our community groups are funded through the Community Services Committee. This is a special one, kind of a one-off to council to support that. So typically, we don't take these through community services when it's an external community group.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question would be to the curling club. I'm assuming that a similar request has gone to the town as well. You've met with the town?
Yeah, that meeting's already taken place.
Okay. And have they given you any response on your request?
Well, I think the response was to bring it to your guys' attention as well, because like I say, it is kind of, the club is 30-70, and they just wanted to see what funding we could get from the Woodlands County. And then the town would probably look at that and figure out what they're gonna do next, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the procedural issues and stuff, don't get caught up in that. The problem that we're having is that we have other facilities that are located out in the municipality
I'm
somewhere.
sorry. Shut it off.
The other services that are located out in the municipality that we have to look after, so there's kind of a pot of money that we have to support all those, and we have to look to that before we do something else. So that's kind of the discussion that you're hearing here, so. At this point, I'll ask, Councillor Kukin has one question. Go ahead.
Well, it's a bit of a question and also an observation, and I think this is more directed so that the people who watch this streaming understand that in this case, what I see is that you guys have run a pretty tight ship for a whole number of years, which is something that is a bit unique for us in the smaller communities. I'm sure Councillor Williams will share that, is that because we don't have the attraction of a town like you guys do, it makes it much more difficult to run the same kind of an operation. So the comparisons wouldn't be quite the same. But I commend you on the fact that you have not actually asked for support, and I think that is a good thing. So it will definitely be something that we will have to consider, and that our communities outside of Whitecourt would understand.
Councillor Christie?
Through the chair to the curling club. If you're saying that 30% of the residents are county residents, why are you asking for 50%? It should be 40%, not 50%.
That's a good question, but I mean, we're presenting on behalf of our treasurer and president, so.
Well, and the committee.
And the committee, I think they go up for 50%, hoping that, you know, they get the funding. So I mean, I understand between the Woodlands County and Town of Whitecourt, there's a split of, I think it's 28 or whatever it is, I'm not sure what the numbers are, but I mean, I would assume that's probably what they're shooting for, but maybe they're asking for 50, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I mean, any financial help at this point probably would be well taken, well received.
No, and we just had a discussion about, you know, COVID might be over, but I think the after effects are gonna ripple for a long time. And I would think that we're gonna have to prepare ourselves to see continued issues like this. So the best thing I can say in a time like this is get out and support your community clubs, sign up, buy a membership, become involved in the community. Get your block parties going, drag your neighbors out of their house, fire up the barbecue, get that sense of community back and running again, and keep going with the kind of work that you've been doing running such a sustainable club. So at this point, all we can do is accept for information, but I really thank you. Councillor Dean, go ahead.
Thanks, Reeve. I just have one clarifying question. So, am I correct in assuming that right now there is no deficit balance, but you guys are expecting the utility costs between April and September to accrue, and you have no money in the bank to pay for expected costs?
Come June 1st, we will have no money in the bank.
Okay.
To pay we had a small amount of money
Yeah.
remaining. But generally speaking, how it works, Dean, is, or Councillor, sorry, generally speaking, how it works is there's always a little bit of money left over at the end of the year, and that's to kick us off. It costs about $5,000 to start the plant. So what we do is we carry a little bit over through the summer, and then basically come October 1st, when the membership starts coming in, we would be either flat or in a small deficit. And then it rolls again, right? And so what happens is right now, we are eating up all of that, and that is why, you know, as Mr. Nenza said, that is why if this doesn't happen, the club will fold.
Thank you.
Councilor Cush.
With that, I'll go with the recommended action here. It says that move that council accepts Whitecourt Curling Club presentation as information and further directs administration to forward Whitecourt Curling Club funding requests to the 2023 budget deliberations.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay,
Thank you for your
very
time.
much. Okay. So bring us to 10:15, which we're a little bit late, but our STARS Air Ambulance and annual update. Welcome.
Good morning. It's great to see all of you again and in person.
Isn't that nice?
Oh, I just love it. I love it. So
Did you catch all the introductions
I
earlier?
did. I
Okay.
did. So just for your, because I believe it's a majority new council.
Yep.
And so I'm pleased to meet all of you. I'm Glenda Farndon. I'm the Senior Municipal Relations Liaison for STARS. So it's a long handle. What that really means is that I work with rural and urban municipalities across the entire province of Alberta, as well as into northeastern BC. And I've been doing this for over 15 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with your previous councils for many years. You've been long-term, long-standing supporters of STARS. So do we have the presentation?
We do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll start. So Critical Care Anywhere, it's our partnership that enhances and sustains STAR's ability to be able to provide critical care anywhere. The COVID-19 pandemic, well, it continues, and STARS remains under very strict protocol in order to protect our operations. So we're taking a very slowed approach to reintegration of our support staff back into the bases. Our transport physicians continue to provide critical care guidance and assist your healthcare professionals with airway management, ventilation, and resuscitation procedures. And we continue to see an increase in stress-related types of missions like heart attack, stroke, drug overdose, and 1 in 5 missions are still COVID-related. There is positive work happening behind the scenes in the STARS Emergency Link Center, which is located in Calgary. It is an immediate 24/7 safety network, and they have access to every available resource, including GIS mapping, as well as preset coordinates to help us locate the patient. We currently average 8 missions per day across all 6 bases in 3 provinces. 5 of those 8 are in Alberta alone. The Emergency Link Center, they receive over 32,000 emergency requests every year. Now, of course, we do not fly on 32,000 emergency requests each year. STARS is dispatched for critical situations. So additional resources would be dispatched when the call is not deemed critical. There are exceptions to this rule as well, when additional resources may not be available, as well as any access issues or very special circumstances. STARS crew also travel on ground ambulance as well as Alberta Health Services fixed wing when critical care is required. Our transport physicians are always in radio contact as well so that they can help assist first responders on scene. And there is approximately a 1 to 10 ratio regarding STARS missions flown. So in other words, if an area like Whitecourt were to see 10 missions per year, like in your rural areas, then it's it's likely that we have also assisted on 100 additional calls in your area by our physicians providing virtual consultation with your local hospital, your local doctors, your first responders. So regardless of how a patient may be transported, whether it's by ground ambulance or by Alberta Health Service fixed wing or STARS, it's our transport physicians that are providing the medical oversight and guidance on those critical calls. No, the other slide, please. Previous. Nope, right there. Thank you. There's a new pilot project that's also launched now with our STARS transport physicians now taking shifts in the Emergency Link Center. It's proving to be extremely effective. While our crews are administering critical care in the back of the helicopter while en route to the hospital, it's our transport physicians who are now saving precious time on the back end by coordinating the complex logistical arrangements with the receiving hospitals for such things as scheduling a neurosurgeon or specialty team, or the cardiac cath lab, or the CAT scanner, which is mandatory for a stroke patient. So in time-dependent cases, let's say for example a brain bleed, minutes count, and physicians are now able to make virtual face-to-face decisions using real-time diagnostics. This results in the immediate direct delivery of critical and trauma patients to the operating room. It is a game changer. I'll get my next set of notes. Thank you. So the pandemic has affected our revenue in all funding areas. You know, the long-awaited HEMS review was released by the Government of Alberta, and it had posed several recommendations regarding STARS. Number one, that they would look at new air ambulance legislation in Alberta. Number two, STARS to be named as the dedicated service provider. And number three, for increased operational funding for STARS. But they have indicated that they will continue with consultations before any final decisions are made. So in the meantime, they extended the same 20% government funding to STARS that we've been receiving since 2010. So we've had a previous 10-year affiliation agreement with them for 20% funding, which expired in 2020. And so we've been year to year since that they've been just renewing this 20% as they look to making other decisions. Just recently announced, Alberta Health Services said that they would increase their operational support for STARS to 50%. This will align the Alberta government now with what we are already receiving from Saskatchewan and Manitoba governments. But it is not confirmed when will we receive this funding. There has been no discussion on a date whether it would be this year, next year, or in the future. So we continue with our 20% funding, and with the increasing demand that we continue to see, we rely on our life-saving partners, and that includes you. Yes?
Just a question about the other provinces. So Saskatchewan, Manitoba contributing 50% of the operating costs. What percentage of the operating costs are then covered by municipal partners in those provinces?
That's a bit difficult because they're just getting started in engaging municipal partners.
Okay.
In Saskatchewan, they did a few years ago put forward through SARM for a volunteer basis of at least $2 per capita. So trying to follow our model that we've been working on and building on for so many years. They have about 95% voluntary support. They're just now starting to generate, because in Manitoba, we started out with 100% government funding there. So they're just now starting to, build on that and also build on fundraising components so that they could still follow the Alberta model. So now I think they're probably at about 90%, 10, but the progression is that they would land on 50-50.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll continue. So as the increasing demand that we are seeing, it's really important that we continue to have our partnerships with our municipalities, because you help us to offset the additional operational costs. You help us to maintain the dispatch coordination of the Emergency Link Center, the mandatory education for our crews, innovation, leading edge technology, everything that brings together the whole package of STARS. And so it's a really important factor, because any operational funds that we receive from the government are strictly to offset operations only. So the pandemic forced us to think outside the box. Back, please, thank you. And be proactive. We identified operational and fundraising efficiencies. We even sadly had to downsize staff members, especially in affected areas like events, for example, when we could not host any events for the past 2 years, so we had to downsize staff. The STARS Lottery is our single largest funding source. So in 2021, the lottery actually, despite the pandemic, sold out. Albertans continue to stand by our side, and we need that, being that is our single largest funding source. Calendar campaign has significantly decreased. We've not had the ability the last 2 years to have a presence in rural communities. And it still remains an unforeseeable future for events, as well as we did create a new multi-provincial radiothon, which was hugely successful, and we hope that will go forward as a mainstay event. Next slide, please. Let's have a look at our 5-year mission overview within Woodlands County. This is up to April 15th. And so overall, when we take a general overall annual review, Woodlands County sees an average of 13 missions per year, so a little over 1 per month. This would represent over $100,000 in service value to your residents and area annually. And as well, many scene calls originate with the patient taken by ground ambulance to the nearest hospital, and then STARS is requested. So it's important to remember that that's why we've also included the interfacility transfers from your Whitecourt Hospital, because generally the majority of those, with the exception of maybe a few COVID patients as well, especially last year, the majority of those calls are generated from a scene call that happened in the rural areas, and then they've already been transferred to the hospital by ground when STARS is called. You're very fortunate that Woodlands County residents are also served by 2 bases. You're served by both Edmonton and Grand Prairie. All in all, it's a testament to the value of our partnership, because your residents have access to STARS in their daily travels, whether they're here at home or they may be in Manitoba, like across Western Canada. Next slide, please. Municipal partnerships are vital to STARS. The green areas represent what we currently have for municipal supporters across Alberta and even into northeastern BC. Municipalities recognize STARS as an essential service, as well as a vital asset of the emergency protective services they provide for their residents. So approximately 90% of Alberta rural and urban municipalities are currently united in regional partnerships, like Woodlands County, as well as many of your surrounding neighbors. Majority of commitments are pledged at a minimum $2 per capita, which ranges up to $90 per capita. We have some municipalities who recognize that, they are in very remote areas where ground ambulance response is 1 or 2 hours away, one way, and STARS may be a 30 or 40-minute flight. And we're bringing that intensive care unit environment as well. So they have implemented some very large dollars into their annual budgets, recognizing us as part of their emergency protective services. Woodlands County is also one of our municipal leaders. You are at a $3 per capita rate, and we very much appreciate your continued partnership and your leadership. Many have also contributed to a fixed rate, so we've seen a lot of fluctuation now, especially with the recent census, and so then that means that we will see fluctuation in what we are receiving. So many municipalities have moved to an overall fixed rate that they've put into their budgets that They know what they have to plan for annually, and we know what we can rely on. The red boxes indicate 7 municipalities that have also received logo recognition spanning decades of support for STARS. And together, currently, we are generating over $2 million in funding from municipalities only here in Alberta. Most recently, it was Rocky View County that received logo recognition, being the first municipality in southern Alberta. Next slide, please. Let's also have a look at our neighborhood. So your residents may be flown within neighboring municipalities that are not reflected in our previous statistics. Emergencies do not always happen close to home. And when we compare the same 5-year time frame, the mission volume now increases to over 1,000 missions when we encompass your bordering neighbors and the areas where Woodland County residents would travel. Next slide, please. It was a massive undertaking to even think about a $138 million fleet campaign. It seemed almost impossible, and of course we didn't know at the time we were going to be amid a global pandemic as well. The previous aging fleet, we faced dire challenges. Parts were no longer being manufactured or available. And then during COVID, like delivery times was just astronomical to even think about it. We're very grateful to federal, provincial, and municipal governments who all embrace the vision of having a new fleet that will start to serve for generations to come, as well as individuals, corporate, and municipal donors. And with very recent gifts that we just received, I'm proud to say that we did finalize the $138 million fleet campaign to pay for 9 H-145 helicopters. What you may not know is that with the increasing mission volume that we've seen the last 2 years, it was decided last year that we would take advantage of the current pricing that we had in place with our initial contract with Airbus. So we purchased a 10th helicopter as well. So now we anticipate the proceeds, once we are fully operational, we anticipate the proceeds of the previous aging fleet would help to generate anywhere from 10 up to $15 million. Of course, this is going to depend on market value at the time as well as the rate of the US dollar. But these funds will be attributed to the paying off the 10th helicopter, which is due to arrive late fall of this year. We're very excited now that we just received the final 2. So one is for Grand Prairie and one is for Edmonton. So they both will be serving your residents. So I want you to please save the date, June 21st. It's going to be an afternoon event, June 21st. You will be receiving, I'll be going to probably Corin, an invite, which is open to all of you as well as your CAO and any staff that you would like to bring along. You will be in Edmonton to formally welcome the H-145. You'll get to see it up close and personal and the entire new medical interior. So please save that date. We'd love to see you there to celebrate with us. You see the unique fenestron tail on this new bird. It has increased maneuverability, decreased noise and vibration, and of course superior safety features over the previously fully exposed tail rotor of the BK-117. We expect our pilot training, which was also delayed massively due to COVID. Pilot training can only take place in Grand Prairie, Texas. So all of our co-pilots are now covering our Edmonton and Grand Prairie bases so that those pilots can get their training and we can finalize. We hope that this will be done by the end of this month and expect that we will be fully H-145 operational across all 6 bases in 3 provinces by June or July of this year. Next slide, please. It is breakthrough technology, this H-145. It outperforms the BK-117 in speed, range, and fuel efficiency. It has powerful twin engines just like the BK-117, advanced avionics, autopilot, auto hover. It will greatly reduce pilot fatigue, especially in back-to-back missions. It has the all-new 5-bladed system, which will give increased lift and load capacity. And of course, it's also maintenance friendly, requiring fewer scheduling maintenance intervals, which is going to result in increased availability, as well as reduced cost. Next slide, please. This is the state-of-the-art intensive care unit, which helps us to bring the highest level of critical care. Our STARS crews, they are recognized across the world for advanced critical care expertise. It's our combination of an intensive care unit nurse as well as advanced life support paramedic and our emergency transport physicians working in the Emergency Link Center. And this is equipped with communication advancements, so Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and satellite connectivity. This allows us to now use cutting-edge diagnostic tools where we can actually transmit the test results while in the air directly to the transport physicians that are in the Emergency Link Center, as well as the receiving doctors at the receiving hospitals. This is bringing positive results. Next slide, please. So in closing, I'd just like to say, STARS was born out of necessity. We've been serving Albertans since 1985. More than 45,000 missions have been flown to date. And more importantly, at no cost to our patients. We want to celebrate 20 years of partnership with yourselves, Woodland County. It's important to have all aspects of emergency protective services available, and especially in critical life-threatening types of situations. On behalf of our very important patients, we sincerely thank you for 20 years of bringing hope and a chance at life. We thank you for your continued unwavering support, which was approved for another term for $3 per capita for a 4-year term, which is in conjunction with your council term. A life is saved every day, and it is partnerships that make it possible. You are STAR's reason for being, and we thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the presentation? Councilor Wilhelm?
Question. And this is just a little bit, but have you guys had any discussion with the MD of Greenview as to why they have so many missions there? It's almost 3 times the amount of any other location.
Well, they're like 3 or 4 or 5 times the amount of real estate as well as any other surrounding municipality. So they certainly, yes, 1/3 of all of our missions are within the MD of Greenview. But on their behalf as well, I would like to say that they are one of the leading municipalities. They are the leading municipality in the entire province who have recognized what we do for their residents as a part of their emergency protective services. And they contribute $210,000 per year to operations, as well as they made a $500,000 fleet gift to the Grand Prairie. So I do feel that they are doing their part to ensure that, not only for their residents, but they also do it on behalf of all of us in Alberta, that we maintain our operations.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Councilor Cush and then Councilor Polk.
I guess quick comment and a comment. Even when we were at the RMA, topic of STARS and whatnot came up. It's very well received across the province. Everybody's very grateful for the services you guys provide, us included here. My question I do have though, when we take a look at all of you talk about the neighborhood and everybody kind of involved, everybody are on the list, they all mainly like your rural counties and municipalities. Do you have much support from the urban side?
Yes, we are increasing that now. That when I talked about the regional partnerships, so that is more that I've been invited by a lot of different municipalities have like a regional type of quarterly meeting with all the mayors or reeves within their area and their emergency protective services. So several have invited me to these particular meetings where I've done basically the same presentation and then asked to meet with each individual town or village councils. And so we do have some in the north, as well as Wheatland County and a few in the south, that have now every town and village within their boundaries are also regional partners with their county, and they're all contributing.
I definitely think this is something that from the rural side, we definitely see the I guess the benefit to it. And hopefully the urban side can kind of get on board, because this is something that I feel it benefits all their residents too, and it's something that, the more towns and cities and other urban centers kind of pitch into this, the better your guys' program can be too.
Absolutely, and I can confirm there is plans that I will go to the town of Wetcourt as well and ask
hear.
to build a regional partnership here within Woodlands County.
Councillor Coogan.
Yeah, a comment and a question. I don't think that the average resident appreciates is as much as you do. As stars, I was fortunate enough to be able to participate in a rescue a number of years ago, which was very difficult, and I was amazed at where they were able to extract the person from. So that being said, I don't think that the average person understands as much how important that is. The second question I have is from a corporate perspective. Do you have any funding that comes from, say, oil companies who have landing zones? Or is that something that the municipalities do through their tax structure? I don't quite understand if you have corporate donations as well.
Okay, certainly, if you come and see the helicopter at the event, that you will see that there is significant representation from oil and gas sector, that they are supporting our operations. In addition to that, we have over 4,000 registered sites. So these are, where they would have sites that they want to register, and they pay for that service over and above whatever they are contributing. So we have many oil and gas sites. Some have hundreds of, even thousands of sites that they would register, so they might register it for sometimes even just for a day.
Okay.
Or they may be a permanent site where we would take on a whole volume for a set amount each year that they would pay for this service, so that we are part of their emergency response plan as well. So there's great significant support from oil and gas sector, as well as industry, agriculture, all of those components.
Okay, I'm gonna ask two quick questions. So one is, you're a registered charity, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if I'm a corporation or I'm a private citizen and I make a donation to you, it's a tax write-off, correct?
It is,
Okay,
with the exception that it's nothing to do with the lottery or with an event where you may have purchased a silent auction item. If you're getting
Right.
something in return, there's no receipt.
yep, understand. And the second one is a technical question, so I'm the airplane geek. You're changing away from the 117s and going to the 145s. I think the S-76, you got rid of those quite some time ago, right?
We've always had a fleet of BK 117s.
Yeah, you had a big one there.
And an
for a little
AW
while.
139.
Yeah, okay. So what's the range of the 145, just for our purposes around the airport?
Okay, so-
you're, like, what's the furthest out that you can go to return back to base? Your mission radius, let's put it that way, before you need fuel.
Okay, I'd like to answer that this question comes up a lot. I'd like to answer that like our pilots do, who say, well, where do you need us to go? As long as there are provisions for fuel on the other end or throughout, like we can go as much as 500 plus kilometers straight as an arrow, as the crow flies, as long as we have provisions for fuel on the other end. So we've done missions to Fort Nelson, Fox Lake several times, different areas, which is right to the border.
Yeah, that's not my question, though.
Okay.
I'm just, if you're jumping from, let's say, Edmonton, and you have to go out and you have to go back without
Okay,
fuel.
so you're asking
What's-
unrefueled?
Unrefueled, I'd like to know what that radius is. If we're-
Usually the BK 117 was based on about a 250 kilometer radius,
Okay.
there and back. But the H145 now has all these extra components and fuel efficiency, all of these things. So they say that it is increasing flight time by about 30 minutes over and above the BK 117.
That's
Does
it
that
for me.
answer your question?
Yep,
I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to answer
I
it.
didn't want to, I don't mean to get too technical with you, I'm just wondering about some requirements at the airport, so. Does anyone else have any questions? Counselor Williams?
Just a comment. I've had the privilege to work with STARS quite a few times actually, and this is a very good presentation. We really appreciate it, and hearing that helicopter, sometimes you're in some pretty bad spots, and that noise is pretty good to hear, so thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Like, I want to say first and foremost, though, we are always indebted to all of our chain of survival partners that we work with every day. They are what allows us to do what we do best. You know, so we need them, and we work very closely with all, you know, like your fire departments, your rural areas as well. They've always been just amazing to work with. It's partnership.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for a great presentation, and again, I really appreciate you coming before us. Counselor Kush?
Make a motion that council accepts the Stars Air Ambulance annual report as information.
Okay. Motion on the floor from Counselor Kush. Any discussion? All in favor? That is accepted.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you again.
I did bring for you, for council, as well as for your reception area, your annual impact reports that highlight all of your, where your money is going to help your residents. I brought you a poster so that maybe you can enlighten your residents that a new helicopter is coming. And of course, a calendar for your office. Thank you so much for your time.
Anyone wants to fight me for it?
It was great to see you. Thank you again for your time.
Okay, would anyone have an issue with taking a break till 11 o'clock just for a quick washroom break? And then shuffling our schedule a little bit here so that we get Sergeant Dodds in ahead of our Yellowhead.
Is Community Futures here?
Bert, are you presenting on behalf of Community Futures?
No, they're actually joining us virtually, but
Oh.
if you have any questions, I'm just here to help them back up and support.
Okay, I just saw it on the item there. I just don't want to keep Sergeant Dodds waiting.
Yeah. I'm getting paid to see Margaret waiting.
I know, but think of all the tickets that you're missing.
Yeah, all the speeders getting by there.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna take a quick break till 11 o'clock. It's just enough to stretch our legs real quick here, so if you bear with us, sorry, we're running a little bit behind schedule.
I've got a handout I can put out while you guys.
Perfect, yes. Nikita, let us know. Have you got, well, there's Michelle.
We were.
All right, hello, Michelle. Are you ready, Nikita?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure, it seems a little different than what I'm used to. Ellen, I almost feel like we've got two open right now. Because I can hear an echo and I don't normally.
Okay, we don't hear an echo on our end, Michelle, and I can
No?
see
Okay.
you and
And-
Ellen. And,
Excellent,
so just.
Yep,
one-
and I'm
one-
just
one
leaving the
sec-
PowerPoint here now, so it's just waiting to share. I don't hear an echo any longer.
okay, excellent.
One
And so
second
can you
here,
all
we'll
see
just
the
hang on.
PowerPoint in front of you?
Hang on a minute, Michelle, we're gonna just get streaming again here. Nikita?
No, that's good.
We're good, we're streaming? Okay, so we're back from our break. And we have another delegation here with Community Futures Yellowhead East Annual Stakeholder Report. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle from Community Futures to take us through the presentation. Do you want us to do quick introductions for the new council as well?
Yeah, that would be terrific, thank you.
Okay.
Because we're sharing screen, we can't necessarily see you all, I don't think. Oh, there you go, perfect.
Okay, we'll go around
Yes,
the,
please, by all means.
we'll go around the council table. We'll start with our administration.
Good morning, Alicia Borbo, Director of Corporate Services.
Hi, Michelle. It's Corinne Scott.
Hi, Corinne.
Devin Williams, Counselor Division 7, Forest and Wintimute.
Bruce Prestige, Counselor, Blue Ridge, Division 5.
Dave Cush, Counselor for Anselmo.
And John Burrows, Reeve.
Peter Gilkin, Counselor for Division 6, Freeman River, Goose Lake.
Jeremy Willem, Whitecourt East.
Excuse me, Alan Dean, Whitecourt Central.
Andre Bichon, Director of Infrastructure.
There we go, Michelle. You're up to date on the new council.
Excellent. Thanks very much, everyone. I really appreciate it. With me today as well is Ellen McCormick, and she's our Community Economic Development Coordinator. So thank you very much for allowing us this time once again to share with you our annual stakeholder report. I think most of you realize the role that we play in terms of assisting entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as our municipal partners in terms of economic development. And so, yeah, we just wanted to share with you a few things. As you can see here by the mission and vision and value statements in front of you, this is really what guides us as we look at different projects and programs and things that we want to offer to the municipalities and our small business owners as well. So we really are guided by that, and then the direction that our board provides us through a solid strategic planning session. And it's really very important to us because this really allowed us to be able to pivot and change over the course of the last couple of years in order to be able to continue to do as much as we would like to. So, and as a result of that, we also played an enormous role in distributing the federal funds through the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund program over the past couple of years, and we'll get into that a little further into the program here. So we are, as I hope all of you are aware, we are governed by a board. And what's kind of unique about our board is the fact that we are all elected officials, whereas not all of the offices are. Some offices are made up of elected officials and then volunteers and so forth. And so I think it's really important that ours are elected officials because I think they bring so much value to the board in terms of knowing who their residents are and who the clients and their customer base is. So this being a unique year where we had an election and hence some of the new board members and council members you also have, we had an outgoing board member, board chair, as well as an incoming, and they really wanted to share a message with our stakeholders. So I'll just take a minute to share some of the words that they've provided. Our outgoing chair, Carol Webster, who worked with us for approximately 8 years between being a regular board member and then a board chair, did a tremendous role towards Community Futures and really making people aware of it. So her words are, as I look back and reflect on my time with Community Futures, the past few years in particular, and the enormous economic challenges faced by both small businesses within the region and municipal stakeholders alike, I'm astonished by the resiliency and tenacity of our business owners and the strength and passion of our municipal leaders. With the continuation of COVID-19 and the devastating effects to our economy, Community Futures Yellowhead East stepped in to provide additional support and resources to local entrepreneurs, small business owners, and municipalities alike. Staff worked tirelessly to support our local small businesses with Phase 2 and 3 of the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund business loans, connecting and advising businesses and municipalities as they attempted to adhere to mandated health restrictions and navigate last-minute government resources and programs. While administering $1.5 million in recovery loans, Community Futures also moved forward with numerous projects, from entrepreneur training sessions through Project Gazelle, developing the framework for a traveling incubator program, a collective incubator space within the Whitecourt office, partnering with municipalities to implement the Regional and Recovery Partnership Program, as well as development and implementation of new website, implementation of new cybersecurity programs, and the startup of the Whitecourt Indigenous Friends Society, to hosting our first virtual open house for the upcoming council candidates, just to name a few. And I do recognize a few faces that were able to attend that, so thank you. Our incoming board chair, Nick Gelch, who's also a councillor with the County of Lac-Saint-Nan, has this to say, that the past few years have been more than a trying time for entrepreneurs, small business owners, and municipal economic development efforts in Alberta. Regardless of our individual positions on the pandemic, the devastating effects on our economy has left a lasting impact on all of us. Throughout the pandemic, Community Futures was able to assist entrepreneurs and small business owners navigate the onslaught of financial aid and resources that were being provided by provincial, federal, and municipal governments. In addition to partnering with our municipalities to develop and implement resiliency and recovery strategies, staff worked tirelessly to support local businesses through the recovery funds, as well as coaching and consulting with businesses, in addition to providing assistance for those who needed assistance pivoting in their existing business models. All, of course, while adhering to the mandated restrictions. With the support of our municipal partners and the board of directors through their conscientious work of staff, I'm confident the next year and years to come will bring continued success to our business community and our entrepreneurs and municipalities. As I discussed, the advantage that we have of having a truly fully elected board, I just wanted to share with you who our board members are, our new ones. As I alluded to, Nick Gelch is our chair. Daryl Weber continues to be our vice chair. Marvin Schatz with the County of Barrhead. Liz Karuik from Swan Hills, who is our treasurer. Serena Lapointe from Whitecourt, who is our secretary. Jim Hales from Fox Creek, as well as Jeremy Wilhelm from Woodlands, and Anna Greenwood with Mayerthorpe, Robin Murray with Onaway, and Ty Asaph from the town of Whitecourt, or Barrhead, sorry. Our staff has also continued to grow over the last couple of years. We now have an administrative and project assistant that we've managed to sustain funding for at least another year. As well, we were successful in applying for a grant that allowed us to hire a digital service squad member, a young fellow by the name of Ian Butler, and we'll talk a little bit more about his project going on. The next thing that I felt was most important to share with you is the loan portfolio. So this is probably one of the biggest responsibilities of the board, as they are responsible for ensuring the sustainability of our lending fund. And so it's broken down into three categories, as you can see in front of you here. So the first category, which is considered repayable, this was sort of the second pot of funding that the federal government provided to Community Futures some 30 plus years ago. At the time it was provided, it consisted of about $400,000. And as you can see right now from the figures in front of you, we currently have $256,000 available to lend out of that pool of funding. Some currently is already being lent out. and some we've not been able to recover due to numerous reasons that some businesses were not successful in their venture. The next pot of funding that you can see in front of you is considered the non-repayable fund. And so this was the original amount of money that the federal government provided to the Community Futures Yellowhead East office, which was a fund of $1.5 million. And so the term non-repayable means if the government were to discontinue the Community Futures program, this amount of money would continue to stay within the stakeholders, so the 10 municipalities within our region, that we would be able to continue operating and providing some sort of continued services, whatever the board chose, if the program were ever discontinued. Whereas the repayable, whatever was left not distributed in loans would have to be repaid back to the government. And the same goes for the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program. Originally, we received $200,000 to distribute to any entrepreneur or small business owner that identified as an entrepreneur with disabilities. And this can be any range of self-proclaimed disability. That just means that they can't conduct their business in the way that they normally used to, and so they might require certain supports and so forth. And so right now we have $64,000 available to lend within that sector. So the next slide shows where our term loans currently exist within the region. And so these are just our regular loans, people that come to us that can't get lending through regular channels such as their bank or other financial institutions. And so because we're considered a developmental lender, we do work with higher risk clients, and we have a set of criteria that allows us to be able to lend to these people where perhaps banks and so forth can't. And oftentimes that's where our referrals come from, are our banking partners. They're aware of our services and how we are able to assist. And so we rely closely on our partners, our municipalities, as well as our local businesses and financial institutions to point people in our direction. So we try work very diligently to try and get lending opportunities throughout the region. But oftentimes you'll see in front of you, these are the ones that come forward and or are currently still on the books. That doesn't mean we haven't had businesses throughout the region, but maybe they've paid back or there's other reasons that we don't currently have anything on the books. So we just wanted to show you what's currently outstanding in our regular lending pool and where those businesses are lying within each municipality currently. The next slide shows a representation of the RRF lending pool that we were able to get out. And it was very, very important to us that we at least try to extend to as many small businesses across the region as possible. So we really did rely on our municipal partners for this in terms of communicating and partnering with our EDOs and our financial institutions and so forth. And so, as you can see, we were very successful in getting loans out and assisting small businesses throughout our entire region. So that's something we're quite proud of. And this consists of the total dollar value that is currently lent out in our region through the RRF fund. Now, when it comes to the repayment of these funds, it's a little different than our own pools because if people are unable to make their payments or repay on schedule, we have our due diligence to do by, working with them through kind of strike three kind of a method of in terms of trying to get repayment. And then if we're not successful, then we turn it over to the federal government. So I'll talk a little bit more about this area and my concern in that regard, but just wanted to show you the dollar figures that we were able to get out the door. So in addition to our loan pool, we also have a series of minimum performance standards that we are expected to meet through our funding operators who are now Prairies Economic Development Canada, or Prairies CAN, whereas it used to be Western Diversification. So we, the board, will come up with yearly goals and objectives that they would like to see us meet, and then we provide those back to Prairies CAN as long as they fit within the pillars that we are expected to work within. Then that's what's shared with them, and they also provide us with minimums that we have to provide in terms of loans in the course of a year, in terms of training hours that we are supposed to be able to provide, as well as programs and projects. So again, our yearly performance goals are set by staff and management in terms of once the goals and objectives have been identified by the board, then we work together to come up with a work plan in order to achieve those. So last year, the top 3 strategic priorities that were identified were for us to continue providing business support and recovery to our small businesses, as well as to really take a look at our existing loan portfolio and how can we develop it in a manner that allows us to continue working with higher risk clients, but still manage our portfolio so that we can continue to offer loans further on. One of the other areas that the federal government is extremely involved in is strategic planning. And so we are required to work with our municipalities as well as our businesses and our nonprofit partners to assist them in their strategic planning. And so that's an area that we do have to provide a minimum performance standard to. So you can see the goals that were set for us in terms of the minimum performance standards here on the left, and then what we actually were able to achieve on the right. So while our goal was to provide 2 community-based strategic plans, we were able to work with 3 groups and help them develop. And they also like to track the number of partners that we work with when we do our strategic planning. And so the goal was to have at least 5 partners, when in actual fact we had 8. And the same with new and ongoing projects. We had a goal of 8, and in fact, this is never difficult for us to achieve because we do have some really strong partnerships throughout our region. So between new and ongoing projects that we do on a continuous basis every year, we were able to get 200 plus. As well, they like us to track the partners that are involved in these projects, and so we tend to have at least 40 plus partners throughout the region when we do the different projects that we're involved in. So the upcoming year strategic priorities that were identified were the board wants us to continue focusing on core business. So that's really our business loans as well as our business recovery efforts in terms of coaching the existing clients that we have, as well as providing training and program sessions for municipal businesses as well as partners throughout the region. The implementation of the Traveling Business Incubator, which we were successful in starting in January, and it was a tremendous uptake from all of our partners. So we actually are attending each municipality throughout the next year for the pilot project, where we have staff that's going out to each of our extended municipalities to provide one-on-one support. It's actually turned out to be quite successful and may end up being a little bit more work than we're actually able to handle. So we're hoping if it continues that way, it may increase our staffing as well, so we can have somebody dedicated to just those services. In addition to that, we are launching our collective co-working space that the town of Whitecourt partnered with us, as well as Project Gazelle, and providing us funding to be able to open a co-working space here for our Whitecourt Woodlands residents and small business owners. And I'm pleased to say that we'll be officially opening May 19th. And that will allow us to focus on the pillars that our federal government partners want us to. So one of the days we'll be concentrating on Indigenous small business owners. One of the days will be with female entrepreneurs, and then those others will be with youth, as well as our entrepreneurs with disabilities and cluster development, and then open to small businesses in general, and traveling business representatives as they go through the region. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, that we were successful in receiving a $70,000 grant that allowed us to hire a young fellow by the name of Ian Butler, who is considered a Digital Service Squad member. And so he can work with any registered small business within our region, and he can spend time with them free of charge, helping them to assess their current online presence, as well as providing them with information and strategies to increase that. He won't do the work for them, but he will sit with them hand in hand and coach them as they learn how to either develop a website or perhaps add different tools to their existing online presence. And one of them being as simple as coming into their business and taking a virtual 360 picture of their business that they can upload onto their website that will just show clients the kinds of services and products that they offer. And so if you're aware of any small business in your area that needs or that you could encourage them to increase their online presence, because we all know that's the way we have to go, please, by all means, refer them to Ian and he will reach out directly. He's trying to and has recently started going face-to-face, door-to-door throughout the region. So if you're aware of any businesses, please let us know and we will make sure he gets to them. The next is just gives you an idea of the dates and our municipal partners that have provided us free space to work out of in terms of our traveling business incubator, as well as the funding that came from Project Gazelle to provide us with the tools and resources we utilize when we're there. Just a little memo here on the collective co-working space that will open May 19th. So again, if you're aware of any home-based businesses that could benefit from coming and working in our office space, they'll have access to their own hotspot desk, laptops, and then of course the resources of the staff within our office. Lastly, I just wanted to review a few of the partnership projects that we have been successful in working with our municipalities, and in particular Woodlands. So that's Lemonade Day. We did a successful training session last night at Fort Assiniboine, and it was fantastic to see. We had 2 families come out, and so you'll see 2 stands for sure that look like they will be participating on June 18th in Fort Assiniboine. We also know we have a couple of families from Blue Ridge registered that did not make it to the training session last night, but I think it's perhaps because they also know they have the opportunity to attend a training session in either Mayerthorpe or Whitecourt, which may be more suitable to their personal schedule. And so Project Gazelle, we continue to work on a number of projects that we have received funding through Project Gazelle that works specifically with female entrepreneurship. Our business improvement loan program, as well as youth loan program, and we were successful last month in administering our first youth loan, and so it seems to have created a bit of buzz for us, and I anticipate we will be seeing more of those coming forward. And lastly, I don't have much to share with you on screen in this regard right now, but I have been talking to a couple of councillors through Woodlands that were also in attendance through the Economic Development Association conference recently. And so as a result of that, there were a couple of sessions I attended that kind of put some alarm bells up for me. And that's one of them is, and it's not new to us, but it's to really determine within our region and our small businesses who will be considered baby boomer business owners, as well as family-run businesses. So we recognize that a lot of people that are baby boomers right now are going to be looking at a transition, whether that's a succession plan to sell their business off to whether it's employees within their organization, or if it's a family-run business, if it's going to be family members. A lot of people, I think some of their plans will have changed, definitely because they've been impacted by COVID. So what does it look like to transition that business right now? Is it the best timing? And more importantly, is their business being evaluated, or their evaluation of their business accurate? I think some people are going to be shocked and alarmed when they do go to try to sell their business. And so recognizing that will be a project and an area that we'll be bringing forward to our municipal economic development committees and the municipality CAOs that don't have an economic development committee, so that together we can take a look at what does that mean to our region and how many businesses are going to be affected and how can we be proactive rather than reactive. And so Bert in particular, but as well as the councils on our board, this is one area I will be bringing forward in terms of a project that I would like to see them invest some of our. We have an additional pot of money that belongs to all of the partners and the stakeholders within Community Futures. And so, of course, that means Woodlands as well. We have a pot of about $1,500,000 $400,000 that can be invested in projects throughout the region. So I will be working closely with our economic development committees to determine what kinds of projects that each municipality might already be considering, that perhaps there's common denominators across the region and we could also invest in. And that will be one of them. In addition to that, I alluded a little earlier over my concern with the number of people that took advantage of any kind of supports that were coming from the federal government. And as a result of that, our partner who assisted us in a project to survey small businesses kind of mid-pandemic to determine the economic impacts to their business, one of our, also our, I guess, leading economic development partners, which is Canadian Federation of Independent Business Report, came out showing this is the current debt load that is being seen by in Alberta in terms of our business owners. And it's much higher, as you can see, in addition to the provinces across Canada. It really does stand to reason, I should say, when it came to us distributing those funds to our partners. We were one of the first provinces that depleted the fund that was provided to us. So then we went back to our municipal partners or our provincial partners between British Columbia and the Prairies to ask for additional funds because we still needed businesses that were looking for support. And so we borrowed funds from their pool in order to be able to provide to our small businesses. So we're very concerned about the debt load that our small businesses are currently carrying and what that's going to mean to our region. Now, some offices may not be showing the same concern because it's not really our lending pool and it's our federal government funds. But my concern is if these small businesses aren't in a position to repay back, how are they going to be able to sustain? And I feel that in order to be proactive, again, we really need to understand where do our businesses sit in our, particularly in our region as well as Alberta, so that we know what economic impact that's going to have on each of our municipalities and our region. So again, I'm going to be recommending to the board that we do a third part to this survey that we've done, and by reaching out to determine what is the current debt load of our businesses within our region, as well as then hopefully tagging on to how many of those are truly baby boomer businesses and or businesses that are looking to but don't necessarily have a succession plan. So those are all things that I will be dealing with our board, and hopefully then those members will be coming back to your table to discuss how can we all participate together and look at what kinds of projects and or solutions we can come up with in terms of regional support. There are a number of other projects that I will also be bringing forward to our board that I feel are true regional projects rather than just individual municipalities. And so you will be hearing of those through Jeremy and Bert as well as we move forward and trying to, put some of this forward. So that's it for the end of our presentation this morning, unless, please feel free if you have any questions. Hopefully I can provide some answers to those.
Thanks, Michelle. We probably will have some questions, but I just wanted to reiterate the work that you do there at Community Futures, and I am hoping that our council and people watching this can understand that if you're looking at starting a small business, having trouble getting funding, having issues doing a business plan, writing some of these things up, this is where you go, Community Futures. And just so you know, I was paying attention at the last Economic Development Forum that I went, or EDA Association that I went to. Local intel says that 98% of businesses in Alberta are small businesses. 65% fail in the first 5 years. And there are 1,087,100 people employed by small business. 160,200 small businesses in Alberta. And a small business is defined as anyone having between 1 and 99 employees. So that's kind of your wheelhouse right there. So if there's anything we can do to promote the partnerships with Yellowhead Community Futures, Yellowhead East, certainly let us know. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our council and Councillor Cloken.
Yeah, I guess I have a question on the amount of debt that's carried in Alberta by the individual businesses. I'm wondering if there is a regulatory component to that, because I know from my experiences is that in the ag food sector, for example, a lot of the costs that are required for people who are working in that sector are for the regulatory pieces, and I'm just wondering if there's been any kind of a study that's been done to identify where we start to have a look at whether we can't streamline that as far as the provincial government's concerned, because I know, number one, in the meat industry, you cannot get out of this province with your product with the current regulations if you're slaughtering provincially, and there is no capacity in the federal sector for that to happen on a custom basis. So there's a lot of restrictions that may exist in some of the vegetable growers and market gardens that would be much similar. And so how do we as a council advocate to start to have a look at those things would be my question.
Thanks for that very much. It's a very good question. And I'm glad that you alluded to in terms of the garden markets and stuff, because unfortunately our ability to work with the ag sector is somewhat limited, although I do see that changing quite a bit over the course of the last couple of years, particularly in terms of our the Triple RF program. We were able to support a few farmers that fell into kind of the right criteria. I would suggest, and I know our board is already working in several areas. We brought the attention to our local MLAs, MPs. Our board met with them actually just to even discuss our concern when we did that first mid report, where we had so many small business owners telling us at that point in time they had no clue how they would pay it back. They just needed the money to keep the doors open until tomorrow. And so we've done some letter writing, and we've done some meeting with our regional and local MLAs and MPs to express our concern over this. And at that point in time, they did advise that they were going to reach out to Western Diversification and so forth as well. Have we seen a lot of impact as a result of that? No. But I think that's one other area I did fail to mention, is that I do feel in terms of Community Futures that we haven't done as much or enough work with our counties as we are able to do with our rural. And it's because, of course, it's such a spread apart, it's across such a large region, and trying to locate those businesses and tap into them. But that is another area where I will be stressing to my board, I want to see more work developed. And one of the obvious ways is through some of the new ag, farm to table kind of work, those kinds of things. So perhaps that's something, again, that we can look to doing and developing over the course of the next year, is if we can partner together on, putting some of this messaging forward in terms of, regulations and that kind of thing. I don't have a direct answer for you right now, but I do want you to know that work is being done, and we will continue to do so. I kind of talked to Bert briefly at the EDA conference that I would be coming forward with this between, Woodlands and Lac St. Anne County and the County of Barrhead to see what can we do, how can we be of further assistance to our ag communities as well.
That answers your question.
Yeah, that's good, because it would give us direction, like the Ag Service Board could get involved in some of those conversations as well.
Absolutely. We just recently did some work as well with, Ellen, can you please remind me of the name?
The Young Agrarians?
Young Agrarians, but the other group that we did the strategic planning with.
That was West Central Forage Association.
Right. So West Central Forage Association, of course, they're very concerned about a number of things as well. And so we did recently do a strategic planning session with them. And I feel, again, they'd also be another good group and another partner to bring into these conversations. And, the more of those types of similarities, the more pressure hopefully we can put.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you again for a great presentation and all the work you do. I know how much effort you guys put into this, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to be part of the board, but we had a little scheduling problem there. Anyways,
You continue to be a champion, so that's all we need.
thank you. Anyone wish to make a motion to accept for information? Councillor Kush.
I'll make a motion that Woodlands County Council accepts the 2021-2022 annual stakeholders report as information.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All right. Well, thank you again very much.
Thanks,
Michelle,
everyone.
Ellen, have yourself a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye now.
All right. Sergeant Dawes, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
Yep.
So you've had to sit here through 3 rounds of introductions.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep you here till 2 o'clock. I appreciate, as always, the opportunity to be in front of you folks. Thank you very much. Apologize for the cell phone. I don't have a teenager here to help me sort that thing out, but we'll be like that. I brought some stats. When I spoke with Mr. Frank, I was gonna come just talk about the annual performance plan, but these stats came out yesterday, so I thought let's, time permitting, let's get into them just a little bit, because generally speaking, it's very good news. You've got 4 pages in front of you. We'll go to page 3. That's specifically the Woodlands County, the Barhead Detachment Area of Woodlands County. And if you look about, look at the bottom of the page. 7 is the number of criminal code files we have had in the Barhead area or Barhead portion of Woodlands County so far this calendar year. 7. Now, I often hear back that not everything gets reported to the police. By definition, I can't report on unreported crime, but I'll tell you that in every detachment area across the country and every police force across the country, there's a significant portion of crime that goes unreported. So we're no different. But what is reported to us is 7. We've had 1 assault. That's the only what we call persons crime so far in your guys' area. Numbers are down pretty much across the board. Collisions are up. On the last page, page 4, about 3/4 of the way down, gray area. So I'm looking at the wrong line. Collisions in the detachment area are up. Collisions in the Fort Assiniboine Goose Lake area are down. I reported to County of Barhead last week, and collisions in the detachment area for so far this year, 112 compared to 91 last year. And our collisions are primarily animal strikes, or if you're going downtown Barhead in the angle parking, it's a little bit like Russian roulette. So those are our 2 primary causal factors. 6 injury collisions for the detachment area so far this year, no fatalities. I wish it was 0. It'll never be 0, but by and large, it's pretty good news. Numbers that are up in the detachment area, page 1. Assaults are up across the detachment area from last year and are the highest we've seen in the last 5 years, 29 so far this year. Of course, I wish that was lower. And I can't speak to what's driving that. It's a variety of assaults, and I guess the only good news is that there's not a lot of serious assaults. I can think of 1 or 2 serious assaults so far this year. Assault captures everything from a push to broken nose. So it's a wide variety of incidents, but 29 is a little bit high for us. I wish it was down. But total persons crimes is the lowest we've seen in 5 years. Property offenses, I was a little surprised at this, 136 for the detachment area so far this year. I expected it to be a little bit higher, but it wasn't. So that's good news. And then total criminal code, 229, lowest in 5 years again. So I thought I'd just brush across that quickly. Does that raise any questions for you folks?
Anyone have any questions? Well, seems like a good news story.
It's good news, and it's, I'm not gonna sit here and take credit for it, because, then I have to take credit for it when things go bad. But this is just consistent with what's going on across the province. You know, we're seeing the same numbers, or same kind of trends that everybody, all of our neighboring detachments are seeing, and what's being reported to me from across the province. So it's just, you know, I wish I had an explanation, but I don't. Things are just down, so we'll keep leaving it at that. I'll talk quickly about our staffing situation.
Sergeant Dodds?
Yes, sorry.
I'm just gonna interrupt you 1 second.
I was just gonna say that for our purposes, this report is really good, because the RCMP are doing their job.
Yeah, well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that. You don't hear it enough, and it's good to hear. Thank you very much for that. Our staffing situation, we are still carrying one surplus member. We've been in this situation for a little over a year now, but we also have 3 members, including that surplus member, that are in the transfer process now. All have preliminary transfers offered to them, and it's just a case of the administrative process taking place, and then, so we'll be losing 3 members this year. We have 1 member scheduled to graduate from depot on June 6th, and he will be in Barrhead middle of the month. So then he enters that 6-month field training program. So about Christmas time, he'll be functional and on the road, assuming nothing goes wrong. And so we're still waiting for 1 more name, and I anticipate it'll be another new member from depot. Who knows when that person will arrive, but when the dust settles, we'll be back to our 10-member total, which is what we're supposed to have. So we'll lose that surplus position and just go back to our 10, which is better than many detachments across the province. So I try not to say that too loud, but here I am on camera and public saying that, but we are in good shape for staffing wise. Any questions with that? And finally, so I was here earlier in the year to talk about our annual performance plan, seeking council's feedback on what your priorities would be. My proposal was that we just stick with last year's, which were visibility of police and drug enforcement. And I've spoken with the town and the county of Barrhead, and they're supportive of that. So pending your feedback, that's the way we'll go, unless you have something else you want us to focus on.
Yeah, and we had actually pushed that over to the governance and priorities meeting, so we were able to have a good conversation, a little more fulsome conversation about it. And we had a recommendation coming out of there as well, so, I mean, at this point, would anyone like to make a motion on the priorities? Councilor Cush?
Nobody else can put their hand up. Make a motion that council confirms visibility of police and drug enforcement is a priority issues for the Barrhead RCMP detachment AAP.
Okay, any questions on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? There you go.
Terrific. So I'll gin up a letter. It'll come to you for signature.
Yes.
And same with the other 2 councils, and then that's what we'll do moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much for the work of the RCMP members. I know it's a thankless job. You don't hear it enough, but we do appreciate it. And just for everybody's information on the angle parking thing, if you're backing out, you're the one at fault, right?
It's a team effort, right? So it depends on a lot of stuff. If you're going too fast down the street, then you bear some responsibility. You know, it's defensive driving, right?
So this is a lawyer answer that depends.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm never gonna get a straight answer out of me. Some of these things anyway, but yeah, it depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
But typically, yeah, you're responsible when you're backing up to make sure it's safe to do so. Yeah. I appreciate your folks' support as always, and thanks for your time. Have a good day.
Thanks, Sergeant. Thank you.
If you didn't keep us here too long, I would have had to speed home.
Let's go and say that out loud.
That's in the quiet part out loud.
Okay, sorry, I'm lost in my schedule or my agenda here.
Your worship, I believe we're at 5.1.
5.1, yes. 5.1. Mr. McKay. Okay. Go ahead.
Yep, so this is for, is this second reading? Council held the public hearing with no written comments or inquiries were received for adjacent landowners. Attached under Appendix A are comments from Woodlands Infrastructure Department, Alberta Transportation, and Alberta Environment and Parks. Attached is the land use amendment application to rezone Part Northeast 235910 west of the 5th, 132.1 acres from Reserve District under Section 120 of the Land Use Bylaws to Section 102 Country Residential District. Attached is bylaw 584/22 for council consideration of second and third reading.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this to administration? Councilor Prestige.
I'll make a motion that council gives second reading to bylaw 584/22, amending Woodlands County Land Use Bylaw on part northeast 235910 west of the 5th meridian, 132.10 acres from R Reserve District to CR Country Residential District.
Okay, thank you. That motion's accepted. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Anyone wish to make, Councilor Williams?
I make a motion that council give third reading to bylaw 584/22, amending Woodlands County Land Use Bylaw on part northeast 235910 west of 5th meridian, 132.1 acres from our reserve district to county residential district.
Very good. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. That will bring us to 5.3. Thank you, Mr. McKay. Alicia.
Your worship, member of council, before you today is what administration would feel is a housekeeping item on the tax penalty bylaw. Through the deferral of the due date and the incentive plan in 2020 and 2021, the tax penalty bylaw that was a long-standing bylaw that did not come back to council every year was opened up, and we chose to be bringing it back to you annually until we finalize everything with the incentive or the other programs. So the bylaw before you today has no changes to it. We're not asking for anything different. We're just wanting to, we're coming before council to have the 2022 tax penalty bylaw reinstated for the 2022 tax year.
Okay. Any questions to admin on this one? Councilor Dean?
Just make a motion to give first reading to 2022 tax penalty bylaw 588/22.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Councilor Williams?
I'll make a motion to give second reading to 2022 tax penalty bylaw 588/22.
Okay, accepted motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Councilor Prestige?
I'll make a motion to move to third reading for 2022 tax penalty bylaw 588/22.
Okay, motion to proceed to third reading. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Can you just put your hands up? I didn't turn my head fast enough. Okay, I see a unanimous on that one, so we can proceed to third. Councilor Kush.
Make a motion to give third reading to 2022 tax bylaw penalty 588/22.
Very good. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. So that takes us to business arising 8.1.
Your worship, member of council, we received an inquiry from a ratepayer within Woodlands County requesting some additional relief on tax penalties for properties that they own within Woodlands County. Included in the package was the email request from the individual, as well as a summation of the current balances outstanding for the properties. And it is administration's recommendation at this point in time that we not move forward with any additional measures to forgive penalties on the properties, as in 2020 and 2021 we had a number of incentives and deferrals that were all in the ratepayers' favor.
Okay, thank you. And we did, trying to remember my times, we did kind of offer a deal. I hesitate to use the word deal, but we had a package that we made available to everybody back last year, did we not?
Your worship, and through to the rest of council, we had received a number of requests from non-residential entities that were struggling to bring their taxes to current, and the council did project an offer forward that we weren't removing any past penalties, but we would look at deferral or removal of, or not levying of, future payments, providing that they entered into a tax payment agreement with us immediately, and that all taxes were paid by December 31st of the year that, so in this instance, in 2021.
Right, and we had a few take us up on that, but we made that available countywide, right?
Through the chair to all council, absolutely, it was something available to anyone who was currently at that point in time sitting with outstanding taxes, both residential and non-residential.
Okay, and the reason I bring that up historically is just, I think it's relevant that it shows that council's not without understanding on some of these issues. Any questions? Councillor Dean?
Yeah, and I apologize, through the chair to Alicia, I apologize if you've already answered this, but just in clarity, there's an outstanding amount, and the penalties that are being requested to be forgiven are the penalties that applied to those outstanding amounts?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, yes, the penalties that have already been levied on that account in 2020 and 21.
Okay,
I will also bring forward that in initial discussions with this ratepayer, I indicated that we were wanting to work with them, and there has been 1 year worth of outstanding taxes and penalties paid in full. So that's why, if council does not go with the recommended action, we would be potentially providing a credit moving forward, because there has been some penalties paid for 2021. Pardon me, all penalties paid for 2021.
So just further to that, so that the negotiations, if you will, with this ratepayer, they understood that penalties were going to be applied. Was part of those negotiations, was there a request to have the penalties removed? And is that why this is coming before us?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, you are correct. There has been a direct request for relief of penalties. In all my conversations with ratepayers, when these items come up, I'm always of the mindset, and then I encourage when possible to be making payments on the accounts and to doing what they can, because we're wanting to be showing that we're working towards resolution of the item, not just leaving accounts in dormant state and coming to council with without having shown that there's some activity and payment going forward.
Councillor Dean and Councillor Cush.
And so just to further clarify, in those negotiations, did both parties understand that the amount was going to include penalties and payments would be made towards paying off the amount that included the penalties, or did the negotiation, was the ratepayer's stance that, hey, I'm doing my best, I'm gonna pay this off, but I don't want to include the penalties?
Through the Chair to Councillor Dean, I do not recall 100% if that was our conversation. Our accounting system is set up in such way that we are limited as a tax clerk or an individual in the accounting department. I do not have the opportunity to go in and pick and choose which items I would like to pay on. I believe there is a workaround to the system, but we've never encouraged that for staff to look into that. So when we receive a payment, it is our process to always pay the oldest first and move forward in that way. So I don't understand if you're asking me. I do not recall if I said anything regarding to just paying on the taxes and leaving the penalties outstanding. I don't believe I would have, because that would not be our accounting process within the department.
And there's no paper trail, there's no emails that detailed that type of conversation. And I hate to bog this down, guys, but I'm just trying to get at the heart of what was discussed and what was...
Through the Chair to Councillor Dean, I would have to go back and revisit emails. I don't recall. I know for myself professionally, I do not recall that I would have ever made promises such as that, because I know this is council's role. But if there does come to light, I'm not 100% certain, because as the RFD is written for council, we're acknowledging that some of the penalties have been paid so that the credit would be applied to future money owing or more recent money owing, pardon me.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Kush.
A quick question through to administration. If, say theoretically, we waived, did what they did, we were asked, we waived the penalties, I mean, how much of a plan do they have made to cover the rest of the outstanding taxes? It's still, from the numbers here, looks like it's still a large amount, and just wondering what.
Through the Chair to Councillor Kush, there has been no tax payment agreement made with this individual. And you are correct, the monies currently outstanding are for 2021, and new taxes will be levied before the end of May. So this became a bit more of an issue as at the end of December 2021, these accounts would have all been considered more than 1 year in arrears, which is then the trigger for administration to look towards registering a caveat on these properties with Alberta Land Titles, which is notification too that we are proceeding with the tax recovery process. From that initial registration there's another year that has to go by before, so it's not an immediate or a quick process, but it is a legislated process.
One more quick question through to Alicia. The kind of offer or whatnot, the package that Reed Burrows was talking about that we offered last year, did this ratepayer apply, or when that, we'll say, help was offered last year, did they reach out on that, or did they just bring this up as a recently and didn't reach out last year?
Through the Chair to Councillor Kush, there was I did not have a conversation with this ratepayer at the time we were offering the forgiveness packages, if you will, for the 2021 taxes. This has come to me, I believe February 25th is the date on the email. There has been a little bit of back and forth. I could have or should have maybe brought it to council sooner, but we had some pretty full agendas, and I knew that there was no immediate additional penalties going to be applied to this account due to bylaws. So February 25th was the first that I acknowledge having these conversations. I would have to check with staff upstairs if they had any conversations more in advance of February 25th, and I do not recall these properties at all for any of the 2021 agreements we were doing.
Okay. Anyone wish to make a motion? Councillor Wilhelm?
On a motion that council denies the request to forgive penalties levied in 2020 and 2021 in the amount of $1,339.38.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Dean?
Yeah, I just come back to not having a good understanding of the conversations that took place, not, and I don't want to create a whole bunch of work for administration, but I would like to see if there was any dialogue, any email dialogue that gave a good understanding of what the negotiation was. The amount is not a huge amount, but for this person, it's obviously significant, and I'm just unclear as to what the conversation was, going back and forth.
Okay. Still have a motion on the floor, though. So
I'm just speaking to it.
Does anyone else wish to comment? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That's 4-3, so that's passed. All right, that brings us to fingers are not working today. Notice of motion, Stratton Avenue, item 8.2.
Your worship, members of council, at the April 27th council meeting, a notice of motion was filed regarding the Stratton Avenue speed limit. In 2021, council directed administration to conduct an informal survey, see if there was a desire of the residents living on Stratton Avenue to reduce the speed limit. Stratton Avenue is 1 kilometer long, there's 14 properties on it. When the survey was done, of the 14, 11 were contacted, 11 contacted and replied. 5 wanted it at 60, 4 at 40, and 2 at 50. I know there was comment about bringing the bylaw with the attachment to it on roads and speed limits. We were able to find the bylaw, but the attachment to it we could not find.
Sorry, say that again, the attachment to the bylaw for?
That identifies the speed limit on different roads. So, for instance, if we have a subdivision that the speed limit has been set at 60 kilometers an hour, that would be on the attachment or the appendix, but we could not find that appendix.
Okay. Are we creating such an appendix?
That was last week. So it is, we did have a conversation with the CAO, and that is on the agenda.
Okay.
Either find it or redo it.
All right, so the current speed limit on Stratton is what?
Currently posted at 60 kilometers an hour.
Okay. Oh, this is the 15th June 2021, right, okay. Any discussion? Councillor Dean?
Yeah, just to provide background, I think I did for council already, but what the resident had asked for was a reduction from 60 to 40. And what the question that went out to the residents who live along in the subdivision was that the current speed limit was 80. And the feedback I get from this particular resident is that the sign with the post and the sign indicating the speed limit had been knocked down during road construction or whatever, and had been laying in the ditch. It always was 60. They wanted it further reduced because of dust problems and the issues that they faced because they were the first resident entering the subdivision. So traffic, of course, that went up and down created dust for them. And what their concern is that residents that were polled were not given the correct information. They were told that the current speed limit was 80, when in fact it was 60. And so then the options to reduce it, the options given were 60, 40, or 50. And they feel that residents compared that to them being told that it was 80. And so they thought moving it down to 60 would be adequate. In fact, the speed limit was 60 and the residents wanted to move down to 50. So if the question would have been posed as current speed limit is 60, consideration is to reduce it 40 or 50, that likely would have changed the way people looked at the question. So what the resident is asking is, can the residents be polled again and be asked if they want to have the speed limit reduced from 60 to either 40 or 50?
Okay, it's 1 kilometer in length, right? All right, anyone else, questions on this one? Counselor Williams?
It's only 1 kilometer long. How could they even get up to that speed in that amount of time? Like 60 kilometers an hour in a kilometer stretch, you got to be trying to get there. I think. I think repolling it is a good idea, but even reducing it probably isn't a bad idea. Like a 1 kilometer long road, I don't think that's unreasonable to lower it down. I would treat that like in town to get to that speed.
Counselor Kush?
Unfortunately, if their concern, in my opinion, is dust, given they're the first one there, even if you had the drop down to 40 or 50, people are turning on the road, driving past it. They're still in that acceleration zone. Whether it's 80 at the end by the time they get there or not, you're only going so fast past their property. They're still going to have the dust issue. Oh yeah, it's unfortunate, but we do have other programs that can apply for to help with that.
Okay. What would a repoll cost us?
Couple hours of somebody's time to phone everyone.
And that's all they're asking for, is for the question to be posed the way they thought it was going to be posed.
Okay. I'll just ask for further clarification. So did you look into the RFD says 80 here. So was it 80 or was it 60?
I can inform council that there was no sign when we did the survey, and we weren't able to find anything identifying what the speed limit was. However, we did do work on Stratton Avenue in September, and we did find the sign under a bunch of grass, and it was 60.
Okay. If I'm spitballing in my head and doing a little interpolation here, I would say that the majority would fall in the 50 here. But if it's just a couple of hours of administrative time, I don't see a reason why we can't do a quick repoll and see if we screw a 50 sign up instead of a 60 sign. Or somebody goes out with a Sharpie.
Seems like an easy fix.
I'm joking about the Sharpie. So, Councillor Kush.
Make a motion to have direct administration to repoll the residents on Stratton Ave for posted speed signs. Does that work?
Is that clear enough for you? Okay.
It is.
Councillor Dean?
Would you accept a friendly amendment of the choices being reduction from 40, or from 60 to 40, or from 60 to 50?
I'll accept that amendment.
Okay.
Or is a third option to leave it at 60?
Sure.
Yes. Those are your three options. 60, 50, or 40, what would you like? Okay, so you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I accept the amendment.
Perfect. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Road construction requests, item 8.3.
Your worship, members of council, administration received a written request for road construction on a landlocked portion of a parcel located on southeast 1163-6 west of the 5th, up north of the Fort Assiniboine area. There are two policies that pertain to new road construction. One of them is policy 3227, where there is an assessment process that is reviewed. The policy says reviewed by council and administration. Administration did review it. 3 separate staff rated it. The average rating was 40 out of 150 or low. However, the policy does identify that if council approves road construction of a road that is not necessarily required for the interests of the general public, they can approve it to be built at the requester's sole cost, and that it be built according to county standards. We estimate the cost to build that road at roughly 800 meters at about $150,000.
Okay. Any questions to admit on this one? Mr. Dean?
So, just to clarify, there, currently there's no residents at the end of the proposed road?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, there are none.
There are none, but the landowner, would like the road there in case a residence was built?
Through the reef, what they are requesting is road access so they can clear an additional 30 acres on the north side of the creek. They do have access at the south end of the parcel, but there's a natural divide by the creek and they are unable to farm that north 30 acres.
Gotcha.
Councillor Colgan.
So that property, they have access on the quarter north, so those two pieces of property are connected, the one that they live on and the one that they're asking to have access to. So there is no road allowance, is there, to access that?
Through the chair, there is a road allowance from the north. So if you, let's see. So from the north, there is a road allowance that comes along the west side of that upper quarter to the.
That would be the one that's Jameson's, and then the other one would be, I guess, used to be Trevor Lawton's, right?
Which way?
From the north.
Like Rod Jameson's is on the back side of my dad's place. That's
Yeah.
where the road allowance is.
Yeah.
In between the two.
So it's a quarter below that
That little
they want access to.
Okay.
That upper 30 acres.
Councillor Dean?
So in the diagram that you're showing here, the quarter, the northeast 63-6 west of the 5th, the western boundary that's shown in green, that's where the proposed road would go, going
Through the
south?
chair to Councillor Dean, that is where the road allowance is.
Okay. And so it's for farming purposes. Why do we need to bring a road up to county standards if the traffic is gonna be largely farm equipment?
Through the reef to Councillor Dean, because our policy identifies that all road construction is to be to county standards. If a road is built on a road allowance, it is legally deemed a public road and therefore has to be to county standards.
Okay.
Councillor Williams?
Has this same situation come up previously, and what do we do there? And the second part is, we're probably gonna see this more and more with land prices how they are. So I think we should really put some thought into this and make sure we get it right, because land prices are very high, around there anyways, and people are probably gonna want access a lot of times, so. Just curious what we've done in the past.
Through the chair to Councillor Williams, since I've been here, we have not had any requests, but my assumption is, given the policy, that there were requests in the past, and that's why the rating system was put in place.
Councillor,
So again, referring to this diagram, the eastern boundary of the 2 quarters shown, there is a county road there.
Yeah, I can answer that if you'd like. On where you see Jameson's quarter,
Yeah.
the county road goes along the north side of that, right at
Okay.
the top of the picture.
Yeah.
And then on the east side of that quarter, I believe is where he wants to make the road, all the way down to where you see the creek, or close to where the creek is,
Oh,
to,
okay.
to access where the black lines are.
So the east side, not the west.
Yeah, so it'd be a north-south,
Okay.
whole length of a quarter to get there.
And so he has access, from the south, he has access on that east side. That's,
He lives on that quarter, the one that put the application in, lives on that farmland just out of the picture. I wish this was zoomed out like just a tiny bit more, but on this, he lives on that southeast 1163-6 west of 5th. That's his home quarter.
and so that creek that crosses that county road, there's a bridge or a culvert or something?
The bridge is the next quarter to the east on Highway 661.
Councillor Kush.
I just want to make a comment. I mean, I understand land is expensive. It's, not very available for a lot of people and farms. You gotta open it up, but it's also a lot of money for the county if we build the road and construct a road for essentially, one person utilized for agriculture. I have nothing against, the guy needs to open a road or clear it or something to it, but putting on the taxpayer dollars for one guy to do clearing, I can't get behind.
Councillor Colgan.
Yeah, I guess, what you're saying here is if council approves that road, it would be on the owner's dime is what you're suggesting here. And so I guess the question for me, more than anything else, would be is that if we were to build that road, we would also be responsible to maintain it down the stretch if that was council's.
Through the chair to Councillor Colgan, whether the county builds it or the private person builds it, once it's built, it is our responsibility to maintain, regardless who builds it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Councillor Christie.
By the county building it, I think it would leave us wide open, because there's many roads like this in the county, and I think if we did one, it would kind of set a precedence that we would get lots of requests, and we just don't have the funding to start building roads everywhere.
Councillor Colgan.
Yeah, the conversation, I guess, that I had with the landowner was that they did have access at some point across the creek, but the creek constantly washed that out, and then and because it becomes a fisheries and a environmental issue, that has created part of this problem. So there's a question that maybe, because of the circumstance, maybe that's something that we should see whether they should have a little bit of a look at because of that circumstance, whether the province would be a little bit more involved in that.
Sorry, I'm just gonna ask a clarification question. How do you mean, like, because the in crossing the creek, that the province should be more?
Well, because there's the new regulations, they're going to have a problem if they put a culvert in or a bridge in, because it's going to have to be vetted through the environmental process.
Great. And the environmental process when you're crossing water bodies, is that provincial or a federal end?
On this one, I believe it is provincial.
Okay. And how many bridges do we currently have in the county that we're maintaining 100 and what?
Bridges and bridge culverts, roughly 104, I think it is.
And this is, this is part of the problem. We had one go sideways on us, and I can't remember the number, but it was in the millions.
1.3 million.
Yeah. So the amount of liability that's, well, not liability so much, I guess it's an economic liability when you look at crossing streams and things like that. I have no problem allowing him to build to the standard. I just, based on the policy, I don't think we should do it. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kuchen, go ahead.
Okay, I guess the next question I would like to direct through the chair to the infrastructure, Mr. Bashand, is if that, if that stretch of road allowance was just cleared of brush and was used by the farmer as an access for his equipment, just as a rough clearing, is that an acceptable practice? Or is it a requirement if that's the only reason that road is used, is for him to access that, whether there isn't something we can do there?
Through the reef to Councillor Koken, given that it is a public road allowance, it's available for all public, whether it's cleared or not. If it gets cleared and the farmer utilizes it and somebody goes in there and there's damage, we could be liable.
Okay, fair.
There is a possibility of having gates put up, but then if somebody wants to access that, they have the right as it is public.
Okay, I guess the secondary question then for me would be, is there a possibility, this may be for the development, is there a possibility, because I know they do this in the oil field, is that they put roads in and they put gates on them for wildlife, whatever, and they are also public access, but there has to be a formal request that goes to the oil company to allow anybody to use that. So is there a possibility then that would be an option? But again, what's the liability component to that?
Through the roof to Councillor Kulkin, that is a possibility. We would get a legal opinion on it, and we could bring that back to council.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Does council want to proceed? Should we table this and proceed with a legal opinion?
Yeah, I think that would. I would personally like to see what options there are,
So,
not to build the road.
yeah, I understand. So this is basically like doing a lease on a road allowance and then allowing that to go to the landowner until we cancel it? Is that kind of how that would work?
Yes and no. I think our current policy identifies that in order for a property owner to lease a road allowance, it has to be adjacent to their property, not going to the property.
Go ahead.
And currently, this one, it's treated and full of junk, like it's not even usable right now, how it is, but I'd like to table it and get a legal opinion on it to see what the options are.
Okay, we can, well, somebody want to make that motion, then we'll move on from there. Councillor Kulkin.
I'll move that we table this until we get a legal opinion of the possibilities.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. We end up now at item 8.4. Sand and salt shed tender award. had some background around this as well, but was under FOIP 27, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So, can I get a motion to move into closed session on this?
I got a motion to go into closed session for FOIP 27, discuss the sand salt shed tender.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. I will wait for Nikita to give me. Are we on?
No, not yet.
All business over there.
We get a green light and a red light. Okay, we're back.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're back from our closed session on item 8.4, and we have Councilor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council rejects all tenders as presented.
All right. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. That moves us down to vegetation control mowing contract. Don.
Good afternoon, everyone. Check the time. So before you today, you have a request for decision regarding our mowing contract for the next 3 years. We did put out a request for proposal. We received one proposal back, and that was from A&R Contracting in the amount of $358,000 for a 3-year contract. This would be for mowing a 15-foot cut on our right-of-ways, and it's basically a shoulder cut. And with this contractor, we have had them as our contractors for the last 6 years. So I am very familiar with their work. They have done really good work with us, so I have no complaints in that regard. And they are within budget for 2022. Our budget is $130,000, and their submitted budget for 2022 would be $112,000.
Okay. Councilor Wilhelm?
To the chair to Don. Is there a situation where, so they've submitted a bid for $112 per year for 3 years. Are there situations that arise where the costs could go up, or is that a flat fixed fee that they charge and we know it's not gonna change?
So through the chair to Councilor Wilhelm, he did increase his costs for the following 2 years. So for 2023 and 2024, he did increase his costs based on his anticipation of rising costs on his end. So that would be the end of that would be the contract price.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor, that was a tie. I'll go with Councilor Dean first.
Thanks, Mr. Reeve. So a question for Don. This 112 for this upcoming year, how does that compare to years past with this contractor?
Through the chair to Councilor Dean, in 2022, the amount we paid them was $111,825.
So that was last year.
That was last year, so slightly more.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Councilor Kulkin.
Yeah, through to Don. Well, how many kilometers do we actually mow? Like, just how many kilometers of road do we have that get mowed annually? Is it every year, or is there some that gets done every second year?
Through the chair to Councilor Kulkin, no, we do all roads in the county, and it's just over 900 kilometers of road.
Councilor Williams.
Maybe it's not to this, but just a question for Don. This is a 15-foot mow. Do we ever do like a full ditch mow just to make sure that the trees aren't encroaching in on that road, so we don't end up with just 15 feet ever, or sections of it? I know we can't do it all in 1 year, but do we ever look at doing X amount per year of a full cut? I don't know. Just a question.
Through the chair to Councilor Williams, in the past we did a 1/3 full cut.
Due to our financial situation, we went down to the 15-foot cut. And with the intention of controlling the brush control with our spraying program. So we've been trying to mitigate the encroachment with our spraying program as well.
If I could follow up with that, is that working? Like, have we found that fairly successful, or should we be maybe looking at doing a portion?
Through the chair, Council Williams, it is working to some degree, yes. We do also have equipment that we can go and do brushing in areas that are problematic. So I think the combination of the two, or the three, I guess, is working.
Okay, Andre, you looked like you had a clarification there.
I was just gonna mention what was just discussed.
Oh, okay, look at us go. Councilor Dean.
I'm just prepared to make a motion that council award the 2022 to 2024 vegetation control mowing contract to A&R Contracting for a 3-year total of $358,000 plus GST.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Dean. That motion's accepted. I was gonna ask one question, and it's sort of related to the motion, but we only had one bid come in on the mowing? Are lawnmowers in short supply, or is, like, am I missing something? I just.
I was equally as shocked, actually, because I thought we would get a lot more interest, but we did not.
Yeah, and how was this advertised? It was put up on the.
It was put on the APC website.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well as our county website too.
Okay, all right, that's all. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Where's lunch at?
It should be arriving momentarily.
Okay. Brings us to reports from council. We have no correspondence, so we'll go with reports. All right, who did I start with last time?
Dylan?
All right, going this way then.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Reeve. Pretty busy 2-week period. Like a number of counselors, I attended the Planning 101 seminar, and followed that evening by the Community Services meeting. And then I attended the Whitecourt Community Service Advisory Board strat plan. So Woodlands has a representative on that Whitecourt Community Services Board, and so they have an annual strat plan session, which was conducted out at the casino on a Saturday, and so it was an all-day affair. Then we had our special council meeting, and this week, Monday, we had a Golden Triangle meeting, which was attended by not just the stakeholders of the 3 community snowmobile clubs, but also the EDOs from 4 different municipalities, and the intent was to look at new ways to market the Golden Triangle. And I think it was a pretty productive meeting. The executive director for the Golden Triangle, along with Bert, received good direction as to what they could do to formulate a new and a little more comprehensive marketing plan. And then yesterday, I attended the Ag Services Board meeting in Fort Assiniboine and was happy to be in the hamlet. Haven't been there since the election, and hoping that we have some meetings there as well. Looking forward to going to the museum and meeting those ladies at lunchtime as well. And then yesterday evening, Growth held a strategic plan presentation meeting in Barhead that was attended by a number of different municipalities, and that we got some direction on what their priorities are. And I know that Rita has lost support from some municipalities. I feel there's value in growth, and I think we need to continue supporting them. So that's my report. I do have a question though. So I've had questions from a couple of residents that live on subdivisions who are, those subdivision roads, they take a beating, and what I understand is that the direction from council is, instead of rehabilitating those subdivision roads with cold mix, it's when the road gets to the point where you can't keep filling potholes, it gets returned to gravel. Is that the direction?
That's the current policy that we went with.
That is correct.
Okay, so that, and when was that policy adopted by council, approximately?
2019?
The fall of 2019, when our finances became an issue.
That's what I assumed. I'd ask council to consider that if our financial picture improves, that we relook at that policy. I'm not asking for it right now, but when you talk about levels of service, for most people that live in the county, roads are their number one priority, and for most people, I think that is a step backwards in their level of service for the road, to go from a cold mix surface to a gravel. So I understand why the decision was made, but would ask council to maybe put that in budget deliberations going forward.
Okay. Councilor Wilhelm? Sorry, any questions to Councilor Dean?
I don't have any questions. I'll just follow up, I guess, with his comment.
Sure.
I actually, kind of on the flip side of that, I've got a couple roads, more than a couple roads in my region that are currently cold mixed, and which we're patching, and the patching is not the best solution. And I've had discussions with residents in those regions, and they're actually eager to have the cold mix removed and returned back to gravel if we're not actually going to repave it or re-cold mix it properly. So that was something I was going to talk to administration about, what the plans were for if we've got a set list of roads or plans moving forward for some specific roads that are getting constant complaints over time. So I'll talk about that another time. No.
Andre's throwing his hand up there, so I'm just.
Through to the Reeve to council. So this time of year when breakup's happening, we tend to patch as much as we can. Once things dry up, so we get to June or August, that's when we typically pulverize, so that there's some heat to try to regenerate some of that oil, so it binds a little better.
Okay, that's good to know, so I can pass that on. Thank you.
And just further to that, I know that Stratton Avenue, we just discussed that when they, Andre just informed me that when they rehabilitated West Mountain Road, that project, they had millings there. Perhaps that's another thing that we can consider, see if there's millings in the area that could be, that one was lucky, we were lucky because it was right there. But, perhaps there's millings that might be accessed. Who knows what projects are on.
I think you can basically refer back to our strategic planning. I mean, the idea around service levels and critical infrastructure like roads is top of mind for the whole council. So people that are watching, this isn't a one-off, and we didn't do it as a regressive measure or anything like that. It's times are tough right now. So
yeah.
Anyway, and we will definitely be looking at reevaluating those service levels.
Sure. Just the last thing I want to say to that, and I don't mean this to be a contentious issue, but I know the messaging that was coming from the previous councillor was that, the best thing to do was to return to gravel. And I got that feedback from numerous residents when I was campaigning that that's not what they want. So
yeah, and the short answer to that question is it depends, because there's there's a couple of oiled roads in my area, that if you drive down them, it's like driving down a freshly plowed field. You just plow it up, because the base is, there's no compaction on the road.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you have some compaction on the base before you can oil it to let the cars pack it down, or it just looks like a tilled field.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, long answer, depends. Sorry, Councilor Cush, did you have a question?
No, just kind of based, kind of what you said there too. We found when, I know the policy change came out, there was some roads that were continuously or cold mix, that were continuously being repaired over and over and over. There's just no real base or structure underneath to support it, and the cost of maintaining the cold mix was, I guess, greater than the real value was to the county. And I know some of them, that was the reason we started going back to the gravel, was it was just the maintenance on those roads were way too high.
Yeah, so again, what I'm asking is that council have a look at this at our next budget deliberation.
Okay. Councilor Wilhelm, sorry.
Do you mind if we take lunch before we continue?
I don't know, is it all laid out?
It's there.
Yes, it's there, okay. Well, at this point, I'll look at my clock, it's what, 12:55, yep, we can break for lunch, and,
I'll be re-energized and ready to talk.
it's okay, no, I saw you with a snack.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll,
Getting worried about my right arm here.
we'll take a quick lunch break, and then we'll come back at, let's make it 1:30. Okay?
All right.
Let us know, Nikita. You getting the little buffering wheel?
Yeah. We definitely need elevator music.
We're just waiting for Nikita to give us the signal. All right, we're back. Okay, it's 1:36, we're back. And Councilor Wilhelm.
Okay, I didn't have a whole lot of county-based meetings. I got to go to Community Futures finally for my first real meeting. Just keeps, the last 2 months, it seems I was either sick or out of town whenever the meetings were happening. So I finally got to go to this one, but only virtually because I was sick. But a good meeting. I finally got to see who the faces of the board were. Really great group. Lots of exciting and good conversation going on with them. So I enjoy being part of that Community Futures. I went to 2 events, not for the town, or sorry, not for the county, but in the town, and they were social events that were happening in the town. And one was the Hockey Heroes event, and one was the Rotary's Lobster Fest. And I'm only bringing it up because first big events in our area that I've been able to go to since the pandemic stuff had happened, and was really nice to be around that many people. Weird that, for such 2 large events, significantly different crowds. So I saw a bunch of different people at Hockey Heroes, and I saw at Lobster Fest, but the same kind of energy in both of those social events. People were excited to be around each other, excited to spend time around each other, and just really positive events. On a personal note, just for council and any residents that are listening, I'll be on vacation from May 25th to May 30th. I'll be out of service mostly on my motorbike, so if you guys are trying to get a hold of me, you won't be able to. Leave a voicemail, or same thing with any residents trying to get a hold of me. If that's why you can't get a hold of me, that's why. What was my other thing? Oh yeah, I did want to have a quick discussion with council. I just, with regards to some of our meetings lately, and I do know that in our meeting policies, delegations have been set at kind of like a hard limit of 15 minutes, and we've been typically having delegations last much longer than that. So I'm just wondering if that policy has been shared with them beforehand, that they should be trying to keep their presentations below 15 minutes. I do understand it can't be, always has to be 15 minutes, but pretty regularly. They're going well over 15 minutes, and it's not only a council issue, it's a matter for the other delegations that are here and showing up on time and then having to sit here for 45 minutes or an hour to get their presentation through. So I'd really like to just reiterate that I'd like if that was shared with the delegations further, and that's our expectation, or at least my expectation from council. And then something that had come up earlier with the road plan, and I just had thought about it. I thought I'd through the chair to Andre, with regards to, I can't remember what the word you used for, but I think recovering the cold mix roads, or how that works and happen. Have we ever had almost a public plan to share with the public and being like, this road, we're planning on looking at and doing some rehabilitation on this road during these dates? Is that a plan that's ever shared with the public? Just because I do know lots of questions about certain roads in my region, or in my division specifically, and I think if you already have a plan in place that you were willing to share with the public, it might be a good idea to be like, okay, we're going to be looking at Deerfoot or Range Road 121 during these months, and those ongoing issues will be dealt with. Do you guys do that ever in the past? Not that I've never seen it, but maybe I just missed it.
Through the reef to Councillor Wilhelm, you're referring to pulverizing cold mix roads?
Yes, yeah.
We formulate our plan once spring breakup is done, so we see where, the soft spots have happened, all that. And we do sections of road pulverization based on the priority of the severity, but we have a hard time scheduling them because, depending on the weather, depending on other priorities, if we can fit a job in where we're doing, 100 meters and we have a day, we go do it. It's hard to advertise that we're gonna do this in this area on this, let's say on this week. If we identify we'll do it this summer, we're looking at these areas, that we can do, but typically when we do that, we start getting calls right away. Right. What are you gonna do? So, and we get calls until it gets done. But it is doable.
And I'm sure something like our asset management plan and the road and how we're gonna fix our roads would probably be encompassed in that as we gather more information. I wasn't sure if that was something that we had shared those kind of plans publicly, because maybe it does create more questions. I just wasn't sure if it could prevent more questions in the future, but just an idea that I'd had.
On the same note, we have a new program that's probably gonna be launched Friday. Some of the bigger jobs we're doing, let's say like Horn Road or the Blue Ridge Road or the culvert up on Range Road 64, we have new signs. Woodlands County identifies the project, the cost, who's funding it, when it's gonna be done. I think they're 4 feet by 5 feet, and those will be put up at all the locations where we're doing major work. So it gives people an idea of what we're gonna do in that area and when we're gonna have it done.
Okay. And then my last item was just, we had gotten an email last Wednesday with an attachment, but had the strategic priorities chart, and it was, Councillor Dean was actually supposed to talk about it, and I think he forgot in his section, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Right. Thanks, Chairman. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to open up that attachment. The reason I sent it out is I just wanted you guys to have a look at the format. I really liked the one pager that captured all of the priorities on one page. The background detail was in the supporting documents, if you will, but it's something I'd maybe we can bring it to a G&P meeting or something, but that format, it's just easy to read rather than having a 10-page document that you want to flip through. In the past, and the previous terms I spent on council chambers had the tables were covered in glass, and the county map was there, and we would put things like this underneath, so it was a constant reminder, and it was easy to refer to. Not suggesting we need to do that, but all too often, those documents, you forget about them, right? And this one is just, as I say, easy to read. I suppose it could be included with every council package, so that again, it's just there all the time. But we can discuss that at a later date.
I re-forwarded it to you guys just in case you didn't see it. Anyways, and that's all for my part.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Wilhelm. Any questions, Councilor Wilhelm? What kind of bike you got?
I got an KTM 790 Adventure.
Nice. Dave's got.
Dave's got a question.
Oh,
Just
go
if
ahead.
we could, just before it kind of gets lost when you're talking about the delegations and the time frame, I believe, I would like to have more of a conversation on that, the time frame that we have. Wondering if we could make a notice of motion to have, the delegations bylaw or policy brought to the next GMP meeting to have a discussion on it.
Okay.
I think it's a subsection of our meetings bylaw or whatever.
Yep, we can certainly do that. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. You got that? Okay. I'm going back over here. Councilor Coulton.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it hasn't been that many meetings, but the information that packages that we've got, especially for the Ag Service Board, was very lengthy document, so it's taken quite a bit of time for me to go through some of that stuff and start understanding what's going on. Our last Ag Service Board meeting I found was incredibly productive, and I'll tell you, we have an excellent ag fieldman there, because all of the things that we're asking of her to bring to the table are proactive things that probably haven't been brought to the table before, and she brings them there. She had the resource people there for us to talk to, and our meeting went quite a bit longer than what we all expected, but it was necessary. The highlights for me were we did have a good long conversation with Fish and Wildlife, and it was over that we want to get ahead of the elk and the grizzly issues that we're going to start to face as agricultural people. And so we wanted to know kind of what the position was, and I think the whole conversation morphed into, and I was glad that the board pushed it in that direction, is that we really need to have a conversation between all of the stakeholders, which includes resource industries, agriculture, which is farmers, residents, hunters, because there is a real disconnect. And we really felt, Devin will probably embellish on that, but we really felt that they were looking for a place to start having that conversation, where we actually have wildlife management as not just an enforcement, but an education component. That was a really good discussion. And then we had the West Central Forage Association, which deals primarily with grass farmers, which is a term that we use because that's the crop that we propagate. It's just that our harvesters are the animals that are on that land. And so we got into a bit of a discussion on some of the things that we could possibly be involved in. And I know my past experience with the Bison Commission was that there was always an intent of the commission to promote the bison industry north of Highway 16, because that's where the land base is basically really good for that, our native cow. And so that was one of the things that we talked about, plus all of the different resources that are available for people to start looking at grazing management differently. And then Grow Organization was there, which has a little bit of a different perspective because they're out of Westlock. And so they represent the grain industry as much as the portion of the grazing industry. And I'll let Devin, I'll let you elaborate on that a bit more, because you had a good conversation with them. And what was very interesting is that one of the things that I've been looking at is now coming out in these research organizations in their extension work. And that is that agriculture is changing. And we know that 70% of the food is grown by small farms. 2%. Very, very, like, and those small farms are a lot more than the big ones. And so the shift is not only consumer driven, but it's also driven by food insecurity and these research organizations are starting to identify that. So that was a real key element for us to be able to start to, as a service board, look at what do we do next. And then we, identified some of the same issues that we always deal with, squeal on pigs, which is trying to get rid of the wild boar issue, and the government kind of, despite the resolutions that went to the government, they kind of kiboshed the trapping idea, and they put the bounty back in place. But because we are Woodlands County is in an arrangement for trapping, we don't have to get involved in the bounty. And I think the explanation was that it's our choice whether we do it or not, right? So that was a key part. So I'm really happy with the direction the service board's taken. There's a bunch of things that happened again then that evening when we were talking with the Grow group. We had an invitation for them to come to Barrhead, and we toured the distillery there and had lunch there. And what we were really looking for was feedback on growth, which has been an ineffective organization that municipalities fund, and we recognize that because a lot of the municipalities have withdrawn their funding. And like George Cuff said, the new board's inherited this, so what are we going to do about it? And I think we're addressing that. We're having some growing pains doing that, but it's coming. One of the things that was very interesting was the conversation we had with Marcel Arcan from Alexander First Nations, is about the relationship that we really need to develop with them, because they're really aggressive in some of their economic development strategies, and how they can align with us as municipalities. And I think he's a real key resource, and I would think that Bert would also say that's something that we really need to work on. We did get a very clear indication from Barrhead County that they will not participate in the RETA next year. And we have to accept that, because we can't give them a measurement of any success. Wild still is in its revitalization stage. I think this year will be its initial, and the proposal of growth is to really focus on that to make it successful, and I think it will be. So those are pretty much the things that are on the table now, and I feel really confident that when we bring some of the information back to council here, that we have some real good opportunities for not only economic development, but developing some real good relationships with neighboring municipalities that will not create a lot of conflict, because our problems are very similar.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Copeland. Any questions to Councillor Copeland? No?
Just a comment, the organization, it's Grow, right? That's one from Westlock. One of the things that they brought up that was pretty interesting for me was an annual
Perennial.
perennial variety of both wheat and, was it flax?
Rye.
Rye. So the yields on both of those grains were reduced, but the fact that your input costs for seeding and for fertilizer, the perennial didn't require fertilizer in years 2 and 3. So when you think about that in terms of a carbon footprint versus food value, like, there's gonna be a conversation about that at some point as well. I didn't realize that there was a grain that was a perennial.
Okay. Counselor Williams?
I was gonna echo what they said with the Ag Service Board meeting. I wish Don was still here. That was a great meeting. That was one of the best ones that I've been to, that's for sure. The West Central Forage Association. The other thing that these two groups are doing too, and I think it's a good time to bring it up in case somebody's watching, there's annual membership that you can get from these, and you get a lot of information, a lot of even small farms. It shows how to maximize what you can get out of the land on how a small area or big scale. It's either one. So definitely, I would look into some memberships for a lot of the farmers that are out there. Going off of what Councillor Dean said too, is that perennial wheat. Some of the stuff that they were doing with that. It wasn't only the wheat that they were combining and harvesting. You can graze this after, and it still comes up the next year. That's such a neat thing. The roots are 8 feet down. Like, it's just a crazy plant and what they're doing. Like, it's quite a setup. And then they also talked about a lot of grazing techniques, how to rotate and pinwheels and all kinds of different ones. So it's a good way to get them to do the trial and error versus you learn the hard way, because there's not a whole bunch of money in farming. So if you can maximize that off their backs, that's pretty good. The other one too, Fish and Wildlife, I was going to talk about that, but Peter covered that pretty good. But VSI, we've had an uptick in membership or people taking part in VSI in the county, so I think that's really good. I'd like to see that. And yeah, the bounty program with Woodlands County, just in case anyone's watching or hears it on the news or anything. As of right now, we're not entering into that. The trapping is way more successful, so we'd like to keep doing that as a Ag Service Board. That was kind of the consensus. And then I was at an Ag Society meeting a couple nights ago. Most of that was targeted around the Hamlin Hoedown. There's lots of planning goes into that. They're doing a very good job of that. And also, there's actually quite a lot of little programs that are approaching the Ag Society to use the building and space there's yoga and music and arts, and there's quite a lot of stuff. So that's positive to see. People are trying to start up some programs. They're having obviously financial difficulties getting going, but it's nice. The Ag Society's working with them, so hopefully they come to some deals on utilizing that space a little more. That's about all. They covered the rest.
Okay. Any questions to Councillor Williams?
Well, to be a quick one, terrible with acronyms. What does VSI mean?
Oh geez, don't ask me that. So it's like a
Veterinary support.
yeah. It's to support vets and farmers. So it's to keep vets in the north is what it was actually originally designed for.
Okay.
Mostly large animal vets, and farmers can apply, and there's a percentage that you can get. It's all different. There's a whole sheet on it, but like preg checking, it promotes herd health. So
Any procedure.
cesareans. Yeah, there's a list of them. It's not anything, but there's quite a lot that it covers. Some's 50%. There's maximums on certain things, but yeah. So Woodlands County puts in it. It's about $26,000 a year that Woodlands County puts into that. It's sort of like a matching. They pay half, you pay half for most of it. Yeah. So Woodlands County utilizes that quite well, and it shows the farmers really appreciate it. It helps them out, and it helps keep vets here too, because without them, it's a little difficult.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Councillor Prescott.
Well, last Wednesday on the 4th, we had an MPC meeting. We had 4 development permits issued. Then after that, we had a victim services advocate appreciation night at the casino. Pretty good turnout. There was probably 30 people there. And it's good to see, and it's nice to let the advocates see that we appreciate them. And people that don't understand, the advocates are the people that deal with the victims. They'll go and show them how to get through crisis and help them, like with the RCMP with death notifications and So these people take a lot of training, and it's not an easy job dealing with all this grief that people have. So it's nice to give them the appreciation. And then, what else did we have? Oh, on Monday night, we had our Blue Ridge Community League meeting. And it was actually a pretty good one. The sad part is it's the same people coming every meeting. There's about 10, 12 people, and it's the same ones. There's no new people coming, so it would be nice to see more new people showing up to these meetings. But they had an event for Easter, and it was very well attended. All told, they made about $1,200 and cleared, I think, $800 just on this one event. And on June 4th, they're having a Hamlet garage sale. All the residents can do a garage sale on that Saturday, and then in the hall you can rent tables for $15, and they're having a bunch of companies, and like CN is coming to do rail safety. I think Victim Services coming, so it's going to be a good event. And then they're having a kind of a dinner and supper or a dance after. And that's about it.
Any questions, Council President? Council Cush?
Well, we had the Planning 101, as mentioned earlier there, the special council meeting we attended. A couple of things I'd just like to bring up. We had the, in some area this spring, the highway cleanup. Lots of volunteers out there cleaning up the ditches and the garbage and stuff. And everybody out there who worked it looks amazing. They did a great job out there. Lastly, in summer we had the spring barbecue. And just like Councillor Wilhelms was saying, the events, it was nice to see. It was a sold out facility. They had a live band. They had a lot going on. It was just great to get the community back together, everybody there, and we were just having a good time and having some form of normalcy after the last couple of years. So that's what I got.
Okay. Any questions, Councillor Cush? Nope. All right. I attended the Planning 101 as well myself, and went in to attend a roundtable discussion on some of the all of the rural municipalities, and I believe there were 8 that had signed up for arbitration on the ICF, so we got some interesting conversations there. Some of the things that I'm going to mention here are actually part of things that I did with the RMA, but they're pertinent to our community. We did some member visits, so you actually go and sit in front of the council and hear what specific concerns are, their challenges, things like that. So for people that are watching Woodlands going through what it's going through right now, there's a lot of municipalities out there that are struggling in the current economic climate. There are a lot of changes that are on the horizon from the province as well. So some of those changes include the creation of a replacement of MSI. For those of you that don't know what MSI is, it came in around 2008, and it was called a Municipal Sustainability Initiative. It was money that was collected by the province and then redistributed by the province to municipalities. Huge chunks of it to Calgary and Edmonton, but also to rural and urban municipalities. And that particular funding model is being cut significantly through the creation of LGFF, Local Government Fiscal Framework, and that's supposed to come in 2024, I believe is the first year for that. So there's a lot of discussion going around LGFF and how that funding model is going to look, but the pool is considerably smaller than MSI was. So municipalities, urban and rural, are going to see a haircut on that one. That's the big thing on that end. The Whitecourt Star reached out to me to do a quick interview on the Arts and Culture survey that Woodlands County did. And I got a lot of positive feedback, and people were very happy that council had taken the time to engage residents. And I think based on the number of surveys that we got completed, it certainly seemed like people were interested in being heard. So I know through our strategic development plan, there's a significant component around engagement, community engagement. So I'm hopeful that this is the start of more engagement, and I think our residents are going to appreciate it. The last bit was that I had to visit my folks, which live in Victoria, BC, so I drove all the way to Victoria. The Trans Mountain Pipeline is absolutely humming, the construction on it. There are hundreds and hundreds of pieces of equipment right next to the highway, and the access is, I mean, seemed like every mile or so they had another right-of-way built to climb up into the track, and they're laying pipe. There's just a ton of equipment working there, so that seems to be going full steam. When I was on my way back, gas was $2.20 a liter in Victoria. So for those of you that are struggling with our current price, it could always be worse. I guess the last thing, and we touched on it briefly, is I think pretty much everybody's brought it up, that they're happy to go and see people face to face, that events are happening in person now. And, we had a presentation from a community group that was struggling to make ends meet, that up till now was self-sufficient through fundraising and things like that. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to say that, we have some programs that are available. Spring's here, the barbecues are out. You can apply for some of those programs to get a little community party going. I don't want to say block party, because we're going to have to rename that. We've been talking about branding more rural, and if you say block, it's more of maybe a cut block party.
Bush party.
Yeah, bush party. I don't know, but we've got to ruralize that a little.
I like it.
So, but that funding is out there. So I would encourage people to dust off their running shoes and get out of the house and start reconnecting with people and your neighbors and the community groups. And as Bruce was mentioning, there's the same members showing up to some of these community groups. This is our community. You've got to take control of it, get involved at the grassroots level, be involved in those organizations, and you can help steer the ship. So that's my last word of encouragement, I guess, and hopefully we stay like we are as far as being able to gather in person. Is there any questions for me? Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I as far as this, all of us talked about the 101 municipal planning thing, and this is probably something that the public who's seeing this wouldn't understand, but we went through a little bit of a skit to show how a public hearing should work. And I'm pleased to say that our Reeve, who was playing in the skit as Johnny Weed, showed his human side. And he doesn't behave like that in our normal meetings, and I'm glad that it's that way.
Now I regret missing.
It was actually a skit basically telling people how a public hearing should not be held. So you had different characters.
It was entertaining.
Yes, and then at the end we did a debrief on hey, what went wrong here, and it's very educational, and I know we've worked hard to try and make the public hearing process. I mean, it went from a single paragraph in our meeting procedures bylaw to a 10-page document, making sure that council has opportunity to ask questions, because often we get questions from residents. They want to know things, and we're able to ask good questions because that opportunity is there. So And again, those public hearings are not to make decisions, they're to gather information, so. Anyway, thank you. Any further? All right, with that, I'll accept a motion to Councilor Cush.
Make a motion to accept the council reports for information.
Thank you, Councilor Cush. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. And we got a CAO report, so our acting CAO.
I have very little to report, Region Council. Nothing was left to me by Mr. Frank to add to you. From the accounting point of view, the staff are working to get the tax rate bylaws finalized and presentation, so that'll be before council at next meeting. And we did just do a little checking in response to Councillor Wilhelm's comment. All of the delegations that were invited today, it specifically said in the email that presentations were to be kept within 15 minutes. So we do try, but I appreciate that it's coming to GNP for further discussion.
Thank you. And I can work on that as a chair too in the beginning if you put it on and make sure that we keep them to the 15 minutes. So.
And just to comment on that, I wasn't directing that necessarily at any of them today. I think it's just an ongoing trend that we're seeing. So just want to make sure that when we're set a precedent, we're setting good precedents for everyone involved.
Hey, any questions to the CAO, acting CAO? Ooh, you're off the hook. Look at that. Okay, motion to accept the CAO report, Councillor Polkin.
I'll make a motion to accept the CA report as presented.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. That brings us to, excuse me, item 11, which is Committee of the Whole. So on the Highway Winter Maintenance Contract under FOIP Section 27. Councillor Wilhelm.
A motion that we go into Committee of Whole under FOIP Section 27.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. We're in closed session. We'll wait for,
Yeah.
It didn't sound good. It didn't sound good.
I never concentrated on that name before. Okay, thank you. So we're back from closed session on item 11.1. We have a motion coming out of that. Councillor Cush.
Make a motion the council accept the highway winter maintenance contract as information.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, Councillor Williams.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. No discussion on a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed?